Hello, hello.
What's going on, sir? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I just your
Are you sure?
Check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Check. How does my voice on terror sound? Does it sound sexy? Just 20 seconds. I feel like Phoebe from Friends. Like, I want to be sick because his voice is hot.
No, it's not.
Better than what it was yesterday. You guys heard those live reads?
Yeah, I
Those
did.
are up, bud. I told you I sounded like Gary. I mean, he has no voice. At least I had a voice.
Tell Bradford to send us the audio. Send us the audio?
Send us the audio.
Oh.
It's in a commercial.
There you go. You heard me.
Did you just say Abraham? Yep.
Bradford, don't listen to me.
Bradford, is this a hold on. We can't play
You're not going to like hearing me after
so
today.
he can hold us out. No. We can't play commercials through Ox. I don't know what that means.
All the string goes through here.
Got you. So I got you. Perfect.
Who's ready for some wings?
What do you want to be?
Yeah, I had Chick-fil-A.
Staff that skill, as much as we preach, swing and miss, pitch to contact, right? I want somebody to run everything down, and then you got some options in left field. The question is, when the group does get healthy, other than the service time, which I don't think the organization is worried about the service time at all when it comes to Victor Scott, and what if he is playing a great center field for you, and everyone is healthy? What do you do then?
Another day, another conversation about the Cardinals center field situation. That was Brad. Who is back in the today. I am Brandon. ESPN. We are broadcasting live today from Cyberg's out in O'Fallon, Illinois. Come on out, enjoy some food, cold Bud Light, 101 ESPN giveaways, and plenty of screens to watch the NCAA tournament all day long. More BK and Ferrario up until 2 o'clock. The Fast Lane until 6 o'clock. This is all brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy at Cyberg's in O'Fallon, Illinois. Her latest article with John Mozeliak. It's questions and answers essentially with On a Thursday
Very
as opposed to a Friday, very different conversation. So,
Asking anything about.
oh my gosh. She got some answers, kinda. Did she? He was coy, but I think when you read between the lines, if we do our Mo translation, you can understand what he's trying to get at here. And Alex, if I were to translate what he is saying through like the, it would be as follows. Be patient. For the first month of the season. I'm not telling you gotta like it, but when asked about Sonny Gray, he said, quote, the main question for him is what's best for him and the team long term. A lot of times when you break from spring training, you're so focused on the short view and getting off to a great start, but we can't forget it is a very long season. Then when asked new bar is going to be out that long, so that's a component to the conversation. And we are continuing to get encouraging news on Tommy Edman, but I still don't know for opening day and for the opening road series. We're going to get these players back in flow. There's more to it, but that summarizes most of what he's trying to get at here. He also went into why you don't want to rush young prospects. Alex, when I read all of this, my thought process was as follows. The Cardinals are they're probably going to put Brendan Donovan in left field on opening day, and they're just going to see what days while they're without Lars Nootbaar, and then they'll go ahead and reassess. Where are you at on this after hearing John Mozeliak's comments earlier today to Katie Wood?
You know, I get yelled at a lot on this show because I'm so negative about the Cardinals and, you know, why can't you be more optimistic like you are with the Blues? Because, guys, if we ever looked at what John Mozeliak has said and said, you know what, this guy's going to do something different, because every single season it's the same thing. And Adam Wainwright, and it's going elsewhere. Just like you entered this season and you Cardinals are going to feel a little bit different about their offseason because they had 91 losses, and you're thinking they can't be pleased with their performance. They're going to make significant changes. What were their significant changes, you ask? Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, sure, Sonny Gray, that one's good, but then other than that, not a whole lot. So that's why when you enter a season, and I hear John Mozeliak talk about the performance of Victor Scott, and you see how he plays, and you hear Ollie Marmol's you know, it's not on TV, Timo. But you're seeing it, but we also rush these guys. We want to make sure they're mentally strong enough to handle this. And that's worked in the past, but for right now with this Cardinals team, it feels like John Mozeliak using the be patient route, especially after last season. You got to change your tone. I mean, because you could go through the be patient conversation here. What did they finish with in the month of April last season?
They were like 10 and 24 or something.
Yeah, I was trying to pull it. You can't sit there and say, well, we got to be patient, is because you did that last year. You were patient last year. Able to build yourself out of that grave. And for Mo, you can't have the same comments you've made in years past, because this is a much different year than any year you've gone through as a president of baseball operations.
Yeah, I want to start on the pitching side first. I'm a little surprised that they want to go the route of placing potentially. I mean, that's what it felt like that translation was placing Sonny Gray on the IL to start the year.
Mo.
Which is
I
what's
get
happening.
I get that. Zero. I would still plan on carrying Sonny Gray on the opening day roster. I know he's not going to start on opening day, but it's better to have him in that rotation, you know, the first time through, rather than having him on the 15-day IL, and then he misses potentially 2, maybe 3 turns through. So I'm a little surprised by that, but I think it is good that they have at least a plan in place. I still can't get over the path of least resistance, and they want to start Dylan.
Who could have seen it coming, man?
And provides better defense, and I think you can have a better balance of defense and offense if you start Scott in center, and then you can go with Donovan, who's in left field today, in left, and have Burley as the DH, or hell, Matt Carpenter. They've had Matt Carpenter, who's actually swung the bat fairly well in spring training.
I would just go with Donovan at DH and put Carlson in left.
That too. I don't care either way.
Donovan is coming off of elbow reconstruction. I don't need him in left field on opening day. I would prefer to have him, okay, let's ease into this thing. I know he... I'm no doctor, right? But I'm going to go out every day as opposed to playing in left field every day. But they don't want to do that. They would rather go, like you said, the path of least resistance, which could cause other issues for their roster. And that means putting Dylan Carlson in center field. The other day, I think it was in a piece by Derek Gould where they were talking about potentially going with Matt Carpenter. That's something worth monitoring as well. He has had a good spring. It's worth noting that he's been very productive at the plate so far. But all of this gets back to, like, man, if you're a Cardinals fan, what are the reasons for optimism heading into the season? There's certainly a lot of excitement about what the offense could be, although that's tamped down a bit by the Lars Nootbaar injury. There's a lot of optimism about Ray and what he could be at the front end of your rotation, although that is tamped back down by the fact that he's going to be on the injured list. Oh, but the bullpen should be 15 and... There is also a jab right to the face of here's this exciting, shiny new toy that runs 1,000,000 miles an hour, is going to run everything down in center field, and might steal 10 bags in the first month of the season.
Magic option of Michael Sinise, who could jump into the lineup and help for a couple of weeks until Tommy Edmonds here. Why do I need Victor Scott when I've got all of these other pieces that make us better? We don't want to ruin Victor, and I'm using Mo's terms here, guys. They don't want to ruin Victor Scott's potential by letting him play for 2 weeks.
Here's what I don't understand, and this is why I find this the most frustrating, is, okay, we don't want to rush him because we may need to season him more in AAA. You rushed Jordan Walker last year, technically. Like, they brought him, and they still brought Jordan Walker, and they had to make a 40-man, if I remember correctly.
40-man move.
If they had to do that all over again, do you think they would have done it the same way? Because I think the answer is no. I think they would have sent Jordan Walker on opening day last year down to AAA.
And didn't they send him down like a month into the season because he wasn't
thought
getting
that
the
was
ball?
wrong at the time.
I did too. But this is probably why the Cardinals look at it and say, well, it never really worked for us, so we just need to be patient with these guys and not rush them to the major leagues. They seem to, for some reason, view these veteran pieces as better options than the youth movement, where around Major League Baseball teams look of being major leaguers and say, let's put him in this spot right now.
Now, I do think it's worth noting, like, it's possible this ends up being the right decision. We're seeing at times lately a regression at the plate by Victor Scott. Meanwhile, Dylan Carlson has started to produce at a higher level. If you look at his spring training stats recently, Carlson's been good at the plate. There's no doubt about it. Alec Burleson has been tearing the baseball all preseason, all spring training long. Brendan Donovan been pretty good so far throughout the spring. So it's possible they end up getting this thing right. I just think the explanation as to how they got there is so incredibly, in my opinion, wrong.
Again, you started the season off 9 games under 500 last year, and you've never dug yourself out of that hole. You cannot use the same phrase that you've used the last 3, 4, 5 seasons after you had 91 losses and say, well, we just need to be patient, it's a long season.
And the other part that I don't understand, because I brought up Jordan Walker, is it's the same story with Mason Wynn is what I don't understand. Is they're having Mason Wynn up this year. And yes, they gave him a cup of coffee last year to make this. Full 162, we do not care.
Because what's the alternative? This is what?
Now
What
it's
is-
Brandon Crawford.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying though is there is a chance, and I think Mason Lynn has a potential offensive upside in his major league career. Like I think he could be a 260, 280 hitter at the major leagues. There's a chance by going with this, ride it out, put ourselves in a this season that his bat ends up taking that what they're afraid of with Victor Scott and taking a step back and never develop.
It's Brandon Crawford who has zero upside. He has zero upside. He's not somebody that they're building around for the long term. He might not even be here come July. If we're talking in an honest scenario where, like, possible Tommy Edman ends up being your backup in center field and at shortstop by the second or third month of the season, and they decide to DFA Brandon Crawford. That is a very realistic possibility.
But what I would bring up is it's not just about what's on the roster now. It would have been more planning for it in the offseason. Going out and getting a shortstop, trading for a shortstop, or signing another shortstop that's not Brandon Crawford that's near me.
But there weren't any real.
The name that everybody's going to hit. If they wanted to and say, you know what, let's worry about Mason Lynn for another year and let him develop, let's not be willing to push him, just could have brought back Paul.
But there's no upside there either. What I think they would tell you is we believe there's upside still with Dylan Carlson. Now, you can disagree with that. I probably would disagree with that. But they would tell you. I think the president of baseball operations, look at what he was in 2021 when he was one of the best rookies in Major League Baseball. The last couple of seasons have. And if I'm putting my bow tie on, my bow tie, I would say Dylan Carlson still has the upside to be a starting outfielder in Major League Baseball that is a plus player in the outfield for them. And if you view it that way, that is how you talk yourself into the difference between him being in center field with Donovan / Burleson, both of whom have legitimate upside, in left field, presented with as alternatives to Mason Lynn at shortstop. It is a bit of an apples to oranges comparison. What he could be down the road. I do think what you see today in their lineup is what is very similar to what you'll see on opening day. The Cardinals lineup today against the Astros in spring training. Brendan Donovan is leading off, he's playing in left field. Then you've got Goldie, Gorman, Arenado. They have Alec Burleson batting 5th at DH today because Ivan Herrera is batting 6th as catcher. Flip those and put Contreras in the spot for Herrera, and then from there, Walker, Carlson, Mason Lynn. I think that is your opening day lineup. Contreras, and then flipping that spot in the order with Alec Burleson. I think that's where they're going to go.
I mean, today I believe you're right. I would think that that's probably it. I'm still holding out hope that they end up, not making the bad decision and sending Victor Scott down. I think that lineup's good. They're going to be good offensively. That's not their best defensive line. They cannot tell me that is their best defensive line. They just can't. I will not buy that Dylan Carlson is their best defensive center fielder and that better offensive persona at the plate now than what Dylan Carlson is.
I don't think they're going for the best. They're hoping that their offense carries them through these first couple of weeks until Sonny Gray's healthy, Tommy Edman's back, Lars Nootbaar is back. Then you can argue the defense plus the offense.
And I would say that what you just said there, they're trying to thread the needle. Because there is no scenario in which Jordan Walker is in your best defensive outfield. Like, that's just the honest truth. Jordan Walker is not one of your 3 best defensive players in the outfield, no matter what combination you're going with. So, by having him out there, you are. I think it's probably the right move. You got to find out, can he do this long term? The only way to find out is by having him. But their best defensive outfield, they're just going purely defense. It's Brendan Donovan in left, Victor Scott in center, and Dylan Carlson in right. Agreed. That's their best pure defensive alignment in the outfield. I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where they get decent defense in center field. They're a little better in left with Donovan than they would be with Burleson, and they're able to figure out what they have in Jordan Walker, and they don't have to start the clock. They don't have to potentially run. I always thought they were going to go with the path of least resistance, and the more that we hear from Mo, the more that we running. Michigan State versus Mississippi State is the first game of the day. It's 5-4.
Palmer told ESPN in multiple interviews, so Ohtani had zero involvement in betting.
Sure.
All right.
Big change.
Yeah, sure.
Important disclaimer here. All of this is speculation.
What?
And I don't know what happened here. I'm not accusing Ohtani of anything. But this is a fishy story, man. I don't know about you. If you've got a guy, let's say, you're not in the state of Illinois, you're not using the Circus Sportsbook, you know, you go back 20 years, you're in the state of Missouri. You've got a guy that you're going through. And the interpreter for Shohei Ohtani makes about $300,000 a year, according to reports. Do you think that your guy is going to allow you to rack up $4.5 million in debts? Does that sound like something that your guy would likely allow you to do?
Depends. How close are we?
No, not very.
How close are we?
Apparently
You met at
not
a
very
poker
at
game.
all. You've
We
met
met at a
once
poker-
at a poker
Yeah.
game.
Oh, okay. Well, this is starting to make more sense now.
So, I don't know what's going on here, but Major League Baseball has said publicly there will be no investigation into Shohei Ohtani. They believe he had no involvement. Sure, okay. That's nice. I would say for the sake of everybody, it's in everybody's best interest. Even if it's a totally phony investigation and you just come out a month from now and say, yeah, nothing to see here, it was totally his fault. I mean, look over here. You need to investigate Shohei Ohtani if you're Major League Baseball. Just for the appearance of impropriety to go away. This is a bigger story than I think Major League Baseball wants to believe it is. Their biggest star, the biggest baseball star in the world, his best friend is under investigation for gambling $4.5 million.
His best friend, by the way, that he put into his clause signing with the Dodgers, like, if you fire this dude, I can opt out. That's how.
Free agent at the end of the year?
Yeah, so Cardinals should probably look into this one. Well, we don't have gambling legalized yet.
What'd
so
you make
probably
of this
should.
story?
This was the part that I thought of first. If I'm going to invest $500 million into one player for my team, I'm going to do as much investigation as possible to find out what are his skeletons in the closet. I don't know if this is Shohei, I don't know if this is his translator, but as bad as this looks for the Ohtani side of things, I don't think it looks great on the Dodgers either. Like, if I'm going to invest this much money, I need to know everything about this guy. And I just threw this money at him, and less than 3 months later, now we're talking about an investigation that goes into him because of billion.
I don't know how you could
dollars.
possibly know about this.
That's my thing too.
It's a federal investigation.
No, I
They
understand
don't
that.
exactly like go to the Dodgers and say, "Hey, we want you to know we are currently investigating his interpreter. You probably shouldn't hire him." I don't know. I've never been investigated by the feds, but I would imagine that's probably
I
not
would
the way
imagine
that
though. I would imagine though that if this dude is spending $4 million on bets, that if you get some type of private investigator to look behind the curtain,
didn't know.
That's all on credit.
Yeah.
It would be like you going through your guy. It's not like what you use for the Circus Sports app where they get all of the information. You can't use a credit card on there. You got to use a debit card. That's pulling from your account immediately so you don't rack up debt. That's why they do it that way. Well,
there's a paper trail of that though.
there's not in this scenario. In this scenario, it's all through credit, right? This is an old school New Jersey. You're watching The Sopranos, and they've got the guy that's got all of the bets on his piece of paper with all their liabilities. That's what this is. So there's no way for the Dodgers to be able to know about this prior to this week when the investigation is officially announced into his interpreter. What I find to be strange is, okay, so the story was Shohei helped him with $4.5 million. And then now I'm just supposed to believe that $4.5 million disappeared from Shohei's accounts and he had no involvement, no awareness of this until this week? I'm supposed to believe that? All of this screams from all get out. Something more is going on. The say it aloud test does not work in this current version of the story that they're trying to sell to us.
I agree, and I think it's a terrible one too. What you said, Major League Baseball not opening an investigation because this is the kind of thing that needs to be investigated. Because if we are talking about sports gambling, now look, the interpreter said he did not bet on baseball. I would not take that for its word. I think there is an even potential chance that there was gambling on baseball involved in this. I do think that that Major League Baseball needs to look into this because of the fact that the story has changed. because of the way that it played out. If he came out and it was, what he said originally was, hey, Ohtani gave me $4.5 million, he's hoping to get out of gambling debt, I think there still should be an investigation open into this, but I would not have the same reaction I have today to where, like, all of a sudden that story just flipped on its head, and it flipped quickly, and it was to the point where legal representation was saying, hey, you need to change your story. Yes, man, this is how this happened, and it changed quickly. So that's why
during the game,
exactly
between the ninth inning of the game when Shohei and his translator were laughing together, and the end of the game in which his interpreter is literally in front of the team apologizing, and he is fired hours later. It changed like that, dude. So I don't know what happened yesterday, but the whole story stinks. And something is fishy here, and for Major League Baseball to come out within the first couple hours of the story and say, nothing to see here, no reason for us to investigate. I understand why you do that, because if you're Major League Baseball, you don't want there to be anything here.
Yeah.
You don't want to figure out what is going on here, if there's something more to it, because it could involve your biggest star in the game, potentially doing something that is...
If you're Major League,
not good.
Yeah, if you're Major League Baseball, you want to bury this like Vegas tries to bury all the stories they have, because this is awful for your brand. Not only if you have to suspend this guy for a certain amount of tenure, but now you've got that name next to his name for his entire career, no matter what he does. So yeah, it makes sense that baseball is going to try and bury this as much as possible, but man, what an awful look that's going to be if they do.
By the way, on the text line, people are saying, guys, there is a paper trail with the 2 wire transfers. Yeah, there are wire transfers that took place, but what Alex is talking about is like the idea of there being gambling that is traced, like a receipt, and there is none of that. That does not exist with the way that they operated here. The wire transfers are what made all of this related to Shohei. That's where they got his involvement. Correct. And it's his legal name. It's the OTANI, which is apparently his legal name as opposed to OHTANI. So he's related in this in some way, shape, or form. Either his interpreter stole money from him and used it to pay off a gambling debt, and Shohei wasn't aware of that until this week. There was like $1 million missing from his account, which apparently didn't matter to Shohei. Or there was something more nefarious that took place here, and Major League Baseball appears to have no interest in trying to find out exactly what took place. They're going to have to eventually. They will have to change their tune. It's too big of a story not to. Coming up next, Joey Vitale here on 101 ESPN.
The bracket is out. Show off your tourney knowledge and play in this year's bracket. No challenge. It's free to enter, and this year's top scorer will take home a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 prize pack. Must be 21 plus and a resident of Missouri or Illinois. See the contest rules and get signed up to play in Bracket Madness now at 101ESPN.com.
Brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. And by Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
Get your ride ready for spring driving with Dobbs Spring Break Deals. Good through the end of March at all 43 Dobbs locations. Click on GoToDobbs.com for March deals on Goodyear, Pirelli, Cooper, Michelin, and General Tires. Already selling at the lowest price in town, guaranteed. For deals you can use on new tires, click on GoToDobbs.com now. You'll also find spring break deals on expert auto service, including Valvoline oil changes, brake service, wheel... Hey guys. The free and comprehensive spring driving checkup. Whatever you drive, car... Hey guys. SUV, hybrid, EV, click on GoToDobbs.com for deals you can use and to request an appointment at any of Dobbs' 43 Hey guys. So get your ride ready for spring break with Dobbs Spring Break Deals.
I know. I didn't mute it.
Oh, you hear us too? I'm just waiting for my breaks.
Joey Vitale will be on the call alongside Chris Kerber right here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. He joins us now. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Joey.
I'm sorry, man. It's the medicine.
Alex, wait off. What's going on? This season's dying off, I hope. How you guys doing today?
Doing great. There's a lot going on, Joe. If there's any audio issues, bear with us. There might be a little bit of a delay. We're broadcasting live today out at Cybergs in O'Fallon, Illinois. Joe, let's start out with the obvious. Blues with a big game tonight. A couple of different changes into the lineup. Sonny out, Zach Dean in. Sounds like Torrey Krug likely to be out again for this one as well. What'd you make of the changes in the lineup tonight?
It dinged up a little bit in that last game versus Colorado. We called it on the broadcast in that second period. I think he's dealing with a little bit of a lower body issue. Doesn't strike me as something that's going to be long term. I just saw him come off the bus about 5 minutes ago. He looked like he was in great spirits, and we got a work out in the morning. Stay off the ice, but again, looks good up, and we could possibly see him back for the Minnesota game here in a couple days. At least that's what I think they're anticipating. So a night off for Torrey Krug, and then the other one tonight, which is a little bit, I think, more of a surprise was, Zachary Dean gets called in. Yeah, he'll be centering that fourth line here tonight, and they took Oscar Sundqvist out. We talked to the manager about this. It was a tough decision. They called Zachary Dean up right after the 3-1 losing streak in the New Yorks, and then thinking maybe they lead against the Boston Bruins to get Zachary Dean in. And what did the Blues do? They win, and then they won again, and then they won again. And even last year, when they lose against Colorado, the team played a pretty good brand of hockey. So the team has played very well since Dean's call-up, but he hasn't really had an opportunity to get in. But Drew Bannister wants to get Sonny out to give him a little bit of a reset. He thinks his team has been just fine. The fourth line has been great. But he said it was tough. It was tough to tell a player like Sonny that he's going to be a healthy scratch here tonight because, listen, Oscar Sundqvist, he's kind of a heart and soul type of guy. He's a driver of this team. Use him for face-offs, use him for killing penalties, use him late in the games. So it's definitely a tough decision with Drew Bannister, but I think they were looking to get Zachary Dean in. He feels comfortable in the middle, and that's what he'll do in that fourth line.
Joe, should there be concern? Because my thought process here is, man, if you take a guy that everybody loves off of the ice at Oscar Sundqvist, that could be kind of a energy deflator for the rest of the roster.
It's a really good question, Alex. You look at this team, you look at where they're at. They're in the hunt. They know they need to go roughly around 10-3 the rest of the way to get themselves those 95 points, which is probably going to take to get in. So with all that being said, and the fact that your team's playing pretty well lately, and the fact that your fourth line's been clicking pretty well lately, Nathan Walker, another goal last game, and Torpchenko's on the board as well. So to me, that's what makes it tough for the player. You have a player in Sundqvist who has been really driving that fourth line, helping the depth scoring, doing all kinds of things, and just not to mention his personality and what he does and brings to the team. When you take a player like that out to give a fresh kid an opportunity, it's great that you're giving a fresh kid an opportunity. Everyone appreciates that. Everyone was there at one point. You just, I think, sometimes you wonder, is timing. Timing's everything, right? Is now the best time as you're making this kind of playoff push? Well, the other thing is, maybe no, and you think, well, why do they make the move? Well, the other thing, too, to consider here, this is where it's a little bit complicated, is that, Zach Dean got called up over a week ago, and they still haven't gotten into a game. At the same time, you are allowed one more call-up for the rest of the season. So you bring up a kid, you want to see him get an opportunity. He's played great in the American League, and he feels good at center. So really, to me, with Kevin Hayes playing as good as he's been playing, Sundqvist just happens to be the odd man out. So it's unfortunate. Can't mess with the chemistry a little bit. Possibly, hopefully they're not going to drive it tonight. Dean speed is something that could really be a factor in the game. Drew Bannister talked a lot about this morning. It really could make a huge difference, especially with features in Torpchenko and Walker. You get three guys on the same page. This could be a really fun fourth line to watch and keep an eye on. And Drew Bannister did say that Sundqvist would be drawn back in Minnesota in a couple days as well.
Joey Vitale is our guest here on 101 ESPN. You'll hear him on the call tonight alongside Chris Kerber on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. Blues versus Ottawa coming up at 6 o'clock. Joe, I did want to ask you about the situation in net. I think that the Blues deserve a lot of credit for the way that they've handled Jordan Binnington this year to keep him fresh.
Now is the time where you are in a bit of a playoff push, though. Do you think that we will see them utilize Benner more than we had seen them utilize him previously this year?
I think you're going to see him after tonight's game. I think he's going to be pulling the horses. He's going to be the horse rather, pulling the wagon for the next probably week or so. You know, I think that Hofer has played so well, and that's the good news, because for Bennington, like this time last year, and even maybe back into February and January when they were still trying to be in the hunt, they just had to overuse him so much because Thomas Grice just wasn't giving you the games you needed. Now, this year's different because Joel Hofer has been playing really great hockey. He's been so steady, so it takes a lot of pressure off Bennington, where in games like tonight, you can give him a break. It will be Joel Hofer here tonight. The reason is because Joel's been playing really great. But the flip side of that, also, you're giving him a break. I was talking to Davey Alexander for quite a while in the lobby here, or not the lobby, the hallway outside the locker room this morning. And, you know, one thing's just very clear. Bennington needs a break every now and then. You know, he's not as big and strong and bulky as a lot of goaltenders are in the league. He's not overly big where pucks just hit him. He depends on his athleticism, and he depends on the fact that he is so sharp in games. But when you're as sharp as he is, and you're as mobile as he is, and when you're as competitive as he is, you're gonna need breaks. I mean, that's just a reality. I mean, you look at some goalies like. Even look at Robin Leonard, for example. I mean, this is kind of going back a couple of years, but a big goalie. He was kind of methodical with his movements. He was so big and structured where he didn't have to work extremely hard to get there. Bennington's kind of the opposite. Bennington, he needs to work extremely hard to get to where he needs to go. This year, he has been laterally so explosive. He's been making so many more backdoor saves than we're seeing. A lot of goalies across the league. And then you watch his game, he's so in tune. You know, even when the puck's in the corner, he's looking in the slot. He's looking at the point. He's fighting through traffic constantly. I mean, that's a wear and tear for a goaltender. So I put all that together because it's so important to recognize that this goalie, Bennington, is at his best when he's playing 3, playing 4, and then you give him a night off. And tonight is going to be a good night, good reset for him. Because, guys, the reality is the next 2 games, to me, is your season. You play the Minnesota Wild in Minnesota, afternoon game on Saturday. That one's going to be just monumentally huge. I think the biggest game, and I think that whatever happens on Monday night there in St. Louis versus Vegas Golden Knights, analytically speaking, numberly speaking, that is a drastic difference in where you look for the playoffs, whether you're going to be in or out. It's how you do against that Vegas team. If the Blues end up winning that Vegas game, and I say that because Binnington's going to be playing the next 2 after tonight, if you win that Vegas game with the rest of Binnington, I mean, your analytics of making the playoffs, they just skyrocket. I mean, you watch, it's going to be a 15, 20, 20, 30, even a 30% jump if you can get 2 points in that game in a 4-point swing type of game. And it's the fact that you hopefully can take care of business here in the next 2 days. So looking ahead, get Hofer in there tonight, reset Binnington, and let him be extremely fresh for Minnesota and Vegas, which will be your 2 biggest games of the year coming up.
He's Joey Vitale. You'll hear him on the call tonight alongside the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, here on 101 ESPN. Alex has the pregame coverage for Blues versus the Senators tonight at 5 o'clock. Puck drop at 6. Joe, appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for the update today. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk with you again next week.
Hey, it sounds good. But you guys enjoy Cybergs. I used to play hooky in high school at CBC. We used to go to Cybergs on this day when I was in high school, and loved the wings, loved hanging out, loved missing school until my mom and dad got a hold of what was going on. Then they gave me a little bit of a whooping, but enjoy Cybergs.
The wings make the difference, Joe, when you get that whooping, right?
Right.
Vasectomy. I heard that this is like the biggest time for vasectomies across the board for men. You hear about this too?
Yeah, I mean, you got 4 straight days of just watching college basketball.
Sit
What
on an
more
ice
could you ask for, Joe?
I did not time my double vasectomy appropriately. Either one. You think I would have learned after the first one, but definitely not after the second one. But anyway, well, good luck to all the men out there.
See you, Joe. That's Joe
Double
Vitale.
vasectomy, ladies and gentlemen.
Appreciate him, as always, here on 101 ESPN. As he mentioned, we are broadcasting live out at Cybergs in O'Fallon, Illinois. Come on by, drink some Bud Light, enjoy the giveaways that we've got going on for you. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. I think T-Bone might stick around. Maybe the rest of us will as well. Watch a little bit of that Illinois game. That's coming up at 2 o'clock.
No.
The Fast Lane will be broadcasting live here until 6 as well. It's all brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers coming up next.
This is Robert Thomas, and it's game day.
I like Michigan State with that one. Betting against Tom Izzo in March is a losing proposition.
Fallon, Illinois.
Refreshed by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's ESPN.
right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Let's get to this from the 314. Guys, hindsight, of course, is 2020. But are you glad right now that Ohtani and Yamamoto are not on the Cardinals?
I'd still take Ohtani right now, even with a big gambling scandal.
You know what? I'll say I'm happy they're not here because Ohtani.
We could use good PR around the Cardinals right now.
Yeah, well.
Can you
Yamamoto
imagine the Cardinals trying to handle this?
Well, you remember how big of a deal
They could handle Contreras last year.
You remember how big of an investigation and how big of a deal the draft scandal was. Who was the guy's name?
Oh, yeah.
Luno?
No, it was under Luno, but it was the assistant. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember how big of a deal that was. That felt like
They
it
handle
lasted
that well?
6 months. No, they didn't handle it well.
Shocker.
I feel like this would be even harder.
I felt like that was easier to handle, though, because it wasn't something that took place within the Cardinals organization. It was another guy that hacked into their system.
Yeah.
This would be a Cardinals-centric
But it felt like that was
scandal.
It felt like that was always tied to the Cardinals after it took place for a couple of years. The Yamamoto thing, I'm very happy because, man, the amount of people that would be losing their minds after 2 starts in spring training and 1 start of the season, this contract was a waste of money. Can we pump the brakes a little bit? Let's just see what the guy looks like before we start talking about it being a waste of money.
I like it. I like good content, you know.
Well, they don't.
Content guy.
The Cardinals don't provide enough of that already.
I am a little worried about Yamamoto, by the
From
way.
the 314, guys, why did the Cardinals sign Brandon Crawford? I'm sure you have some kind of analytic to be able to explain it.
That felt like it was directed towards you.
There's no analytics for leadership, baby.
Yeah, there's no analytics for it. They needed a backup shortstop.
That's
if it wasn't him,
Bacon.
I don't know who you were going with. I will say, though, hey, man, I've been the one that's been down on this guy since the moment that he signed, and all year I was confused why he continued to be on the 40-man roster. But
Michael Sinise?
Jose Fermin, he's having a good spring.
Yeah.
But you tell me spring doesn't matter.
It doesn't, but it's been good this spring. And so
he feels like one of those super utility guys that the Cardinals always carry on their roster.
If they wanted to go that route as their backup at shortstop, it might have worked better than what I otherwise would have expected, but that's why, because they didn't believe in Fermin as their backup shortstop.
And
right?
to be fair, I don't blame them for that.
Sure,
I totally understand not trusting going into spring Fermin as the backup shortstop, but you're right, he has had a really good spring. And honestly, like now in hindsight, his range is probably about as good as Brandon Crawford's at shortstop.
Yeah, I'd rather have a guy with a track record than a guy that I'm just unsure of who he is, which is why they go Crawford.
Totally.
Take that for your stat.
He's also nice to have. I know we laugh at the leadership stuff, but specifically for Mason Wynn this year, I don't mind having a guy behind him that's been there, done that, been a champion at that position. I don't. That is the one I value that.
Now you hope Mason Wynn takes advantage of that, though. That's the real goal. It doesn't matter what you try and do. It's only if the player wants the advice from that player.
Crawford's got great hair.
From the 618, guys, what are the? By the way, you had to replace the hair of Mater, so it makes sense they had to.
Yeah, but Crawford's is more luscious.
And I don't think Mark can grow it out.
What are the Cardinals doing with Walker? Explain why he's hitting behind Alec Burleson. It's very simple, left, right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It really is that simple.
I don't
we
like
talked
it,
to
but
Michael Gersh about this a couple of years ago on the Danny Mac show about how important the lineup is or how unimportant it is, to be honest. And he said, hey, people make way more of the lineup than what needs to be done. He said, if you get most of your best hitters towards the top of your lineup, you're probably going to be okay. And the Cardinals have one of them good problems to have, which is too many good right-handed hitters.
Yeah, when the Cardinals trade away Goldschmidt and Arenado at the deadline, then Walker's going to be hitting third.
That is true. I totally agree with that. I do disagree with the notion that they have to split up the righties. I know that's what Ollie likes to do. It's why he always sandwiches like Gorman or Newbar in that 3 spot. I just say get your best hitters higher up in the order. And if Walker ends up being a better hitter than, I don't know, whoever hits 6 this year, Burleson, Newbar, I would then move him up. But yeah, you're right. It's a good problem to have for the St. Louis Cardinals.
From the 314, guys, what was your favorite moment of Yadier Molina at Cardinals spring training this year?
Probably the one when the report came out he wasn't going to be there.
I'm still waiting for, like, in Space Jam, I'm waiting for, like, an alien UFO to drop him off at the field in the middle of a preseason spring training game, and then Yachty just steps out and everybody's standing ovation.
Actually, I changed my answer. I think my favorite moment was when the Cardinals went, crap, that guy can't be our manager in July when we need to fire Ollie, so let's give Ollie a 2-year extension.
My favorite was when he won the championship with his Puerto Rican team. That was my favorite.
Fun. That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Mine is all of the Instagram videos that I see of him on his Instagram with his kids.
Or he's just sitting in like a
very well.
sitting in like in a limousine, just talking to the camera. Those are great.
Guys,
what a life.
Will Brendan Donovan live up to his sure thing that everybody believes that he is this year? Seems like there are no questions about him, even despite his injury and not a whole lot of track record. I have no questions about Brendan Donovan.
He feels like a guy that a lot of people won't care about his stats if he brings that
grit,
fire that the team needs. Like, he feels like one of the few guys that obviously you need his numbers to back up, especially if he's hitting leadoff. But if he brings that grit and that passion, he feels like one of those guys that Cardinals fans are just going to gravitate towards no matter what.
Brendan Donovan is like a 15-year starter at left tackle in the NFL. You just set it and you forget it. You don't worry about it. It's not sexy. Nobody's going to, like, buy that left tackle's jersey. But Brendan Donovan is just always going to be a good baseball player. You can put him wherever. He'll get on base. He'll steal a few bags. He'll run the bases well. Like, Brendan Donovan is just a really good player. And sometimes, every good baseball team needs a Brendan Donovan.
True.
Every single one of them. So, yeah, that's why we don't talk about him a whole lot. It might change coming up here in just a little bit, but it's why he's not a topic of a whole lot of conversation, because Mo always talks about the delta, the gap between the best and the worst version of something. For Brendan Donovan, it's not a wide delta at all. His best and worst case scenario are pretty similar.
And that texter asked about, are you worried about his injury? No, because he played injured down the stretch last year. Like, he hit
Dude
like
played with
300
one
with one arm, which is incredible. So no, the one that I would have, I wouldn't call it a major worry, is the Newport one. Like, I'm more worried about Newport than I am Donovan, just because Newport can't stay healthy, and when he is healthy, he plays well, but he just can't stay healthy. It's always random injuries like breaking your ribs.
Edmonds on that list too. I'm very worried that that's going to be like a 2 to 3 month thing rather than the 2 week thing that they're making it out to be.
We also don't talk about it, but Edmund always has these nagging injuries. It's not to the same degree as Newt, where he's missing games, but it feels like every year, like, we get to August and Edmund is playing through something that is limiting him at the plate, where he hits like 200 down the stretch.
And I think part of that is on the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals have positioned him well to have somebody that could always back him up. Like, you think back to when he was at short, it was like, okay, well, your option is Paul DeYoung, who's hitting like 150. All right, well, I'm going to play Tommy Edman, who's like has a wrist that's hurt and hitting 200 because he's just a better baseball
also,
player.
He's the guy that gives other people day off.
Exactly.
Days off. So when Goldie is sitting, or Goldie's a bad example, but when you're having somebody sitting at second base or in the corner outfield in previous seasons, like, he was always the guy that would just fill in on that day as well. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We are broadcasting live today from Cybergs in O'Fallon, Illinois. Come on out, say hello, watch the games with us, grab yourself an ice-cold Bud Light. We'll be hanging out here until 2 o'clock. The Fast Lane will take you up until 6. Coming up next, we're not doing our typical believe it or not, because trying to sing on remote is a disaster. But we do have one scenario. Believe it or not, the Cardinals will have 5 20-home run hitters in the 2024 season. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN.
Spring Training Report on 101 ESPN.
Presented by E&P Granite, Brooke, Jamie, Curbs, and Bernie Federko's choice for countertops and cabinets.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So Ben Hockman had a piece earlier today in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch breaking down the Cardinals' power. And he said, I think they're going to have a Power 5 this year. Not talking about college football.
Good, there's not a Power 5 there.
Talking about the
Power
5 power hitters in the lineup. He believes they will have 5 20-home run hitters for the first time since 2017.
Where have I heard this one before?
And for the
BK
fourth time
every year
in team history. It is crazy to me that the St. Louis Cardinals have only had at least 5 players hit 20 home runs in a season 3 times in team history. That's actually shocking to me, given how much power has been here over the last 25 years or so. But set that aside for a second. We've had this exact same conversation, I believe, each of the last 3 seasons that we've been a part of together.
Yep.
In none of those seasons did it actually happen.
Yep.
Alex, is it going to be different this time?
No, it's not. It's not. I can see where people get their hopes up with it. I mean, go down the list. You got the 2 that are pretty much a guarantee, Goldschmidt and Arenado. I'd put Wilson Contreras in the guaranteed conversation, and now you're talking about one of the younger players, or 2 of the younger players, jumping into that category. And I think a lot of people would consider Nolan Gorman a guarantee. A lot of people will consider Jordan Walker a guarantee. My problem is one of those guys is going to underperform in that area. Whether it's Jordan Walker and you're not seeing the power as much as you're seeing the contact and the on base, or maybe Nolan Gorman has injuries pop up. I can look at 3 and say, yeah, I could see 20 home runs being no problem. And then I would throw one of those 2 in there. But then from there, I think it's tough to ask for another guy to fall into that category. And I'm not putting Lars Nootbaar in this conversation. I'm not putting Brendan Donovan in this conversation or Alec Burleson in this conversation. I think it comes down to, can Walker and Gorman be those 4th and 5th guys that get you 20-plus home runs?
I think it will happen this year, and I probably said that every year, but I do think it can, because I think Goldschmidt and Arenado will get there. I think Gorman will get there. I think he's a lock. I mean, in 119 games last year, even with a bad back, he hit 27 home runs. And then it comes down to what Alex was saying. Contreras, I think he'll get there, but even if he doesn't, I think Walker's getting to that mark this year, and I actually think the other guy that's going to get there is Brendan Donovan. I think Donovan's got 20 home run power. Guys, he had 11 home runs in 95 games last year, and you look at Lars Nootbaar, he's another one that could get there. In 117 games, he had 14 home runs.
Damn, you're giving it to 7 guys?
No, what I'm saying, though, is Donovan was not that far behind Nootbaar, and Nootbaar played 20 more games than him. So I think it's possible that Donovan can get to that 20 home run mark. I think they will probably do it this year. I think the guys that you expect to do it are, for the most part, going to be healthy. Like Goldschmidt, Arenado. I mentioned Gorman. He can do it even when he's not healthy, when he only played 119 games last year. And then it comes down to Walker. I think a full season of Walker can get you there, and a full season of Contreras as a catcher can get you there, and boom, there's your 5.
I expect this. Not only do I think that they're going to do this, I expect it, and if they don't, something has gone horribly awry for the team this year, and most of that is going back to the injuries. They have 7 dudes that could reasonably expect to hit 20 or more home runs this year in their lineup. 1 through 7, the opening day lineup. And by the way, you could throw Alec Burleson in here as well. I'm not expecting it out of him, but it shouldn't shock anybody if he becomes your everyday DH and he finishes the year with 20 home runs. That's in the realm of the possible for him, absolutely. So 8 potential options. I just need 5 of them to actually do it. I think they will. I think they should. I think they have to. Given what this rotation is going to be for you this year, if you don't have this kind of power, well, then how does this team win? How do they reasonably get to 88 or more wins this year and win this division and expect to do anything of meaning in the postseason? When you have Miles Michaelis and Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn and Steven Matz as the back 4 starters in your rotation, this is how you're constructed. You have to be able to go out there and hit 20 home runs. By the way, I didn't mention him. Dylan Carlson could do it as well. He hit 17 home runs in 2021. Again, I'm not expecting it out of Carlson. I'm not expecting it out of potentially Nootbaar, depending on what the injury status is for him. I'm not expecting it out of Burleson. But when you have this many outs as a team for a 20 home run hitter, yeah, you got to get there.
This feels a lot like coming into the season of, guys, Sammy Blake could be a 20-goal scorer. Guys, Jakub Vrana could score 35 goals. This feels a lot like that right now. And the problem for me is where I'm worried and skeptical with it is what you said about the rotation and how they're going to need to. I think these guys are going to be pressing at some point this season. I think there's going to be a longer stretch where this team's looking at it saying, man, we got to start hitting home runs because we're not having success with runners in scoring position. Our pitching is giving up so much in the early portion of games that guys are going to start pressing after a while. And that's where I get worried because when guys start to realize that they need to hit home runs, it feels like that's where it starts to fall off for the team.
Yeah, I think they can. The reason I think they can get there, and I understand what you're saying to them pressing. I think BK's 100% right though. They're going to have to do it. Like if you can't handle the pressure of needing to perform offensively as a team when you've got this rotation, well, then your offense is not what we think it is. You know, it's weaker and it's more weaker in its mindset than it is anything else. So I think BK's spot on. I think they almost have to do this. I don't expect their pitching to be very good. I expect a lot of their wins to be a result of like 6-5, 5-4. I don't think – I remember when – it's a different sport, but I remember when Berube said last year it was, well, you know, we've got to win a bunch of low-scoring games. And I went, what is he talking about? Mm-hmm. They cannot win low-scoring games because defensively they are too bad. That's how I view about the Cardinals. Their pitching is so bad, in my opinion, that they have to win games by big scores, and that means that this offense has to put up those home run numbers that we're talking about.
So I just looked this up. If they do end up with 5 players hitting at least 20 home runs. Now, there's a lot of context that's important here, but this is just going down the list. Over the past 3 seasons, so 2021 to 2023, they have been 15 teams to do so. At least 5 players that hit 20 or more home runs. 10 of those teams either, some of them did both, won 100 games or went to at least the LCS. Of the other teams that ended up in the playoffs that didn't get to one of those 2 criterias was the 2022 Blue Jays. They won 92 games and lost in the wild card round. And then there was another team that won 99 games and then lost in the wild card round as well. There were only 3 teams that missed the playoffs over the last 3 seasons while having at least 5 players hit 20 or more home runs. Last year the Cubs did this, and they collapsed down the stretch.
Their pitching collapsed down the stretch.
Yeah, their pitching wasn't good.
And they had Cody Bellinger, who didn't hit as well down the stretch either.
And then they blamed David Ross, but it's whatever.
There you go. The 2021 Reds won 83 games, and the 2021 Blue Jays won 91 games. Every single team that accomplished what we're talking about here won at least 83 games. Most of them, almost all of them, made it to the playoffs. Many went deep into the playoffs. Constructing your lineup in a way where you have multiple outs to be able to get to this kind of power is the way you win in today's game, man. This is the construction that the Cardinals have been trying to seek. The 2013 offense is the kind of offense that we're talking about here. You have to have a diversity of skills within your lineup. You got to get guys that are getting on base. You got to have players that hit for pure power the way that Nolan Gorman does, and yes, that comes with strikeouts. You got to live with it. And then you need people at the bottom of your order that can be just absolute terrors on the base paths. The 2024 Cardinals, for all of their faults, and there are plenty, and we've talked about them ad nauseum throughout the offseason, they are constructed from a lineup perspective the way that World Series contenders are. That may hit your ears kind of funny because you watched the offense last year and you're looking at the back of the baseball card, the baseball reference page right now, and you see they were middle of the pack offensively. Hogwash. That was because of injuries. In the final 2 months of the season, the offense was non-existent because it was a bunch of dudes that were picked out of a hat that you could, it was the MLB The Show name creators that were playing for your Cardinals last year. Through mid-July last year, this is a top 3 offense in the National League and a top 6 offense in all of Major League Baseball. That is the expectation going into this season. For them to be a contender, not only could they potentially hit 20 home runs for 5 of their guys, that has to be the expectation heading into the season.
And I don't think that you necessarily need that in the regular season to have success. Like, I think you can have a balanced offense and not have, 5 20-plus home run guys. I think where that matters is the postseason, is those guys that provide that power. Because we've talked about it. Ever since I joined the show like 3-4 years ago, the number one thing I've been preaching for the Cardinals offense has been slug, baby, slug. Because in the postseason, it is so hard to do the connective, all right, here's a single, we get them over, we single them home. No, it is. You have to strike, and you have to strike just lightning fast with home runs. And that's why I think, to your point, the offense is kind of constructed as a postseason offense. That's why it's so frustrating the pitching staff is constructed for 80 wins.
He's Alex Ferrario, that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In about 15 minutes or so, we know who the final contenders are for the wild card spots in the NHL Western Conference. How did the Blues stack up against them? We'll talk about that coming up at 12:30. But next, we finish out our NCAA regional breakdown with the Midwest region. They have not tipped off yet today. They will do so later on this afternoon. We'll break it down for you coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
take it.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Before we get to our breakdown of the Midwest region, we'll do that here momentarily. We got to give you the updates from the two games that are currently in action. A new game will tip off coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. Creighton will play against Akron. But right now, we've got Mississippi State heading into the second half of action against Michigan State. Easy for you to say. Michigan State is currently up 33-27 early in the second half. BYU, an early trailer against Duquesne. That was my upset special from that region, T-Bone. Duquesne up 31-21 in that one. In the Midwest region, let's go ahead and break this thing down. We start where we do with every single region. This is the final one we got to break down for you. The game of the first round in your mind. Alex, kick us off in this one.
I'm going the 8 versus 9 here. I'm saying Utah State and TCU is the game. And the reason I'm picking this is because I think this one's going to be a close one, but I also think this one's got the Utah State winning going into it. I picked them to win it because TCU, I think they lost 10 straight going into this one. And anytime you've lost that many games going into a tournament, you can't be feeling good about yourself. But most of the time when you got 8 versus 9s, those are the competitive ones. And I think this one is going to be a buzzer beater.
I think the game for me, I'm going with the 12 seed McNeese State versus Gonzaga.
100%. That's got to be it.
Gonzaga, I didn't think was making the tournament till they got hot down the stretch. They're now playing really good defensively. McNeese State is the same way, and they can really hit the glass as well. I'm looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be the best game, and it feels like the one that kind of is becoming the favorite for the upset pick. That feels like the trendy number 12. I think that's going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, if I'm not going with that one, I'll go Texas, Colorado State. Colorado State looked really good, obviously, against Virginia. If you missed it, they were the team that absolutely beat the hell out of Virginia when Virginia went 52 minutes of real time without scoring a basket. That was against the Colorado State defense, and they are very good defensively. I don't really know what to make of this Texas team. Last year, it was such an excellent group that I think that's just kind of sticking with a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised to see Colorado State win that one. I would probably personally take them to win straight up, but that's another game that I think will be worth watching later on this afternoon. All right, T-Bone, you mentioned one of them. It's the trendy upset of McNeese beating Gonzaga. A lot of people are picking it with the 12 over the 5. What is your upset special today?
Mine is that one. I think it's going to be a great game, and it's also the one that I feel the most confident in an upset because I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be your classic defensive battle that, honestly, you're probably going to watch it and go, man, I don't know what team I was talking about because this is not fun. But I think it's going to be McNeese State. I think they're the one that's going to have the upside. I know Samford's a trendy pick because of the injuries to Kansas. I'm not biting on that. I'm going to go McNeese State.
Yeah, mine is Samford. I'm biting on that one, and mostly it's after listening to Gary Parrish talk about it. Now, I know they're getting their players back, but they've been out for a significant amount of time, and the one thing Gary Parrish talked about is they have a very short bench with Kansas, and he said what Samford likes to do is, one, shoot the 3 ball, but Samford also loves to press early. So he said to watch out for that one, so I'm going to go by my guy, Gary Parrish, and I'm going to pick Samford.
Colorado State's not a significant upset, but it's a 2.5-point underdog. I'll go with the Colorado State one. I would be very, very cautious taking Samford today over Kansas. Kansas is going to be without a number of starters. They're still a better team than Samford, man. Samford has not played anybody with the caliber of players that Kansas has. I'm taking Kansas today. I'm going to take them minus the points. I waited for that line to go down a bit. It has dropped. I think it's down to 6.5 now. I'm going to be on the Kansas side of that one for today.
Keep an eye on Oregon as well. I do kind of like Oregon against South Carolina. Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm actually a little bit surprised by that. Okay, well, then never mind. That's not an upset pick. So.
They're the 11 seed. It's an upset pick.
Thank you.
Don't let BK talk down to you.
I go by the Vegas odds, not what the
I go by
says.
the rankings.
Touche. If you want to go by the rankings and you're looking at it 6 versus 11,
T-Bone,
I agree with T-Bone. Oregon is my selection in that game. I totally agree, but it's a 50-50 proposition either way. Oregon is definitely one worth monitoring today to give you fair due.
See, T-Bone, just don't let him talk to you like that.
All right, your sleeper to come out of this region, T-Bone. Give me somebody other than the top 2 seeds that you think has a real shot to come out of this one.
So it's funny that you brought up Texas because I think they're a little bit of a sleeper for me. They've got Max Abrams that's there. Remember, he had the run with Oral Roberts, I think, is who he was with prior.
Yeah, it was him and his running mate that ended up at Mizzou.
Yeah, well,
nice.
We know who got the better player.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's like not a lot to say, like, really you're going to bank on one guy. Man, I've seen one guy carry teams in the tournament, so I'm willing to bet on Max Abrams and Texas Longhorns. I don't have them going far. I've actually got them losing in the second round, but because of his experience and knowing his name, I feel like Texas could be the team that maybe surprises and goes on a little bit of a run.
So, this is about as chalk of a bracket as you can ask. I have 1 versus 2 and Purdue beating Tennessee to get there. But the two teams that I do have going further than probably most, I have Gonzaga getting all the way to that third round to take on Purdue. I have them beating McNeese and then also beating Samford because I had Samford beating Kansas. But I also have Creighton, and I have Creighton going all the way to take on Tennessee. I know it's 2 versus 3, but again, this is about as chalk of a bracket as I have. Those are the 2 teams that I have going further.
I'm so with you, Alex. This is the bracket where I feel the worst about because of how much chalk I have in it. But when you look at the guys that have played for this team, there's only 7 teams in the country that had more experience than this Creighton squad. Creighton's my sleeper pick, and I know they're the 3 seed, but again, I think most people are selecting one of Purdue or Tennessee. If you go with Creighton, you will be different than the vast majority of the field in whatever bracket challenge you're doing. The 2 best players from last year's team are back, and that was a team that had a real shot to be able to go on a run a year ago. I think Creighton would be, for me, the quote-unquote sleeper from this region. Who's the team that confuses you, though?
I think mine's Kansas, and it's mostly because, like, they were ranked KenPom 22nd, and again, I understand a lot of injuries, but even when they got those guys back, it felt like they really never clicked. Their defense is awesome, which is going to carry them a lot, but they confuse me because it's Bill Self, and I don't like betting against another team's great coach. But, man, when you got a short bench in the tournament, that can bite you early, and that's why I'm most confused. Because if they get through Samford, I could see them going a little bit of run with confidence and get all the way up to matching up with Purdue.
I'll go next, T-Bone. I want to hear yours as well. I've got Gonzaga as the team that I'm confused by.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because they have 2 wins all season long against teams that are ranked in the top 60 in KenPom. So basically, tournament teams, they've got 2 wins against them. One came against Kentucky. That was recent, so they are playing their best basketball right now. Another came against St. Mary's, who a lot of people are taking as a sleeper. So they're capable, but here are some of their losses. Purdue by 10, Washington by 5, Connecticut by 13, San Diego State by 10. They ended up losing against St. Mary's by 2, and then again in their tournament, in the conference tournament, by almost 10. It's just a team that's been a little bit all over the place, and when they've played the top-level competition, they have come up short most of the season. If they didn't have Kansas in that second round, I would probably be selecting them to lose in that second round. A lot of people are going to be taking them to lose right off of the hop. They are talented. They have an excellent head coach in Mark Few. I think they could go on a run. I could also see them losing today.
Mine's Creighton. I never trust a Creighton team when they get to the NCAA tournament, and I don't really know why. This one, they've got one major flaw that concerns me. They're just not very explosive. You know, I feel like you have to have somebody that can be a slasher, that's an explosive guard that can really change things for you. That's why, like, though I'm concerned about the Illini defense, Terrence Shannon's going to go to the basket, and he's going to force you to come in, and they can kick it out and hit some threes. They don't really have that on this Creighton team, and they rely on their defense. And as we've seen before, I'm not sure how great a formula that is, so I'd say Creighton's the one that confuses me.
All right.
Just all saying at the same time.
We don't. I don't think we have the same team coming out of this.
Oh, okay.
That's my guess.
I mean, mine's Purdue.
Mine's Purdue.
Mine is not. I've got Tennessee.
Oh, well, that's a terrible pick.
I think Tennessee is a better version of Purdue. They play at a faster pace. You guys know how I feel about teams that are built around big men this time of the year. Easy to get in foul trouble, easy to take them out of the game because you can plug the paint, and then suddenly you've got to win with other ways. Purdue is going to slow it down. They're going to their big man. They have other players that can beat you. But if you slow him down, I think that they can be beat. I expect them to be beat. The team that I think will do it is Tennessee. So I've got Tennessee coming out of the Midwest region. To recap this one more time, our final 4 picks. I've got Auburn, Baylor, Houston, and Tennessee. T-Bone, who do you have in your final 4?
I've got Illinois. I've got Baylor. I've got Purdue. And I have, who's the other one that
Houston?
I have? No, it wasn't. Marquette. I was trying to remember who's in that
we
other
had
region.
one carryover there.
Yeah.
Alex?
I got UConn, Baylor, Purdue, and Houston. 3 ones, and then Baylor as the sleeper pick.
So
there.
Baylor's the one that we've all got, right?
Yeah. All right, well, they're not going to get
Yeah, I was
there.
going to say Baylor's going to lose to when they play their first round.
Who'd you have winning it all, Alex?
I had UConn beating Purdue.
T-Bone?
I have Purdue beating Baylor.
I have Auburn beating Houston, so none of us have the same same
Look,
winner.
dude, there's one thing that happens at this time of the year. Rip it up, because
Wow,
that's
already
what
ripping
happens.
it up?
Yeah.
Have you missed a pick yet?
No, but I ripped down the middle so I can still keep track.
Okay. We're going to need tape here.
Yeah. Doty, get me tape.
Those are our updates for you guys in the Midwest region. It's the final one that we had to break down. Duquesne continues to lead BYU in the 11 over the 6 matchup. Alex, this would be an upset not only by seeding, but also by Vegas's line.
Seeding's more important.
33-30 at the end of the first half, about a minute to go in the first half, for that one. Duquesne leading BYU. In the other game that is a little further along, Mississippi State continues to lead, Michigan State continues to lead Mississippi State. Michigan State is up 41-29, and Creighton early on up 6-3 about 2 minutes into that one against Akron. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex says we now know, based on the results of last night's games, who the Blues are fighting with for the final wild card spot in the Western Conference. Who are they? What does he put as the Blues odds? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. A big game in the NHL last night. It did not include the St. Louis Blues. It did, however, include two teams that the Blues were, at least, competing against in the Western Conference playoffs. So Wild took on the LA Kings, and it was over basically the moment that it began. It was 3-0 at the end of the first period. It was 6-0 at the end of the second period, and that is the way that the game came to an end. Alex, at this point, is it fair to say that the Blues are no longer competing against the Kings for a playoff spot, but instead against the Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild?
Yeah, I think this is a three-team race now. I think after the LA Kings took down Minnesota, they have the same amount of games played as the Blues, and they are 8 points ahead of the Blues. I don't see you catching them unless they just lay an egg, but right now they've won 2 in a row and won 6 of their last 10.
You also know, though, you don't have any more games remaining against them.
In Nashville, I think Nashville's put it out of reach. Nashville's not going anywhere in terms of catching Dallas, Colorado, or Winnipeg, but they've won 8 of their last 10 and haven't lost in regulation. They're holding down that number 1 spot. So I think what this comes down to is you've got Vegas trying to get that second spot. They're holding it right now. The Minnesota Wild and the Blues. The one thing that Minnesota doesn't have going for them is they've played more games than Vegas and St. Louis, so they've got an uphill battle. They do have one more game against the Blues on Saturday, which that one could really put it out of reach. I think this is a 3-team race now for that bottom wild card spot, and the advantage goes to the Blues, I would say. One, because of the ease of schedule. If you look at Vegas's remaining games, I mean, they play the Winnipeg Jets. They play Vancouver twice. They've got Edmonton, Colorado. They've got another game against Minnesota. They've got a tougher schedule than what the Blues have. But it's also that matchup on Monday when they return home, because the winner of that game, I truly believe, now look, things can happen down the stretch, but the winner of that Blues versus Golden Knights game is going to get that bottom wild card spot. So I think you're talking about those 3 teams fighting for it. And if Minnesota wins Saturday, I think that makes it even more of an uphill battle for the Blues.
I don't think Minnesota has enough. Watching them last night, just seeing where they're at right now, I know they went on a little bit of a run. All of these teams have had a moment, right? LA had a moment early on, and they're starting to heat up again. St. Louis had a moment about a month ago, and now it seems like maybe they're starting to heat up again. Minnesota just finished their little hot stretch, so to speak, and now it looks like maybe they're going to go back into a little bit of a slide here. I don't think they're a good enough team, man. They just don't have the capable goaltending to go along with something that will prop them up every single night to believe in. The Blues have better goaltending. The Blues have potentially a better and more lethal power play down the stretch. Vegas continues to be the team, though, that I think is the team to beat here.
And, dude, if I'm Vegas right now, I'm worried because I made all of those moves at the deadline, and my team has not been good since the deadline.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, well, I think they're falling victim to what the Rangers fell victim last year, too. The team that makes way too many moves puts their team in a weird spot, and they not only traded for Tomas Hertl, who has not played, by the way. Like, when Hertl comes back, that's going to provide them more offense, and now I don't know when he comes back because he still said it was like 2 weeks ago. But defensively, like, they're giving up a lot. And I think Vegas is falling victim to, like, we're going to win with the power of all of these big names. And I think you got a little bit of a power struggle right now with those guys. And their goaltending hasn't been the same like it has been. So Vegas has a very tough schedule down the stretch, which is really why if you lose that game to Vegas on Monday when you play here, that's now a 4-point swing in their direction. They're going to have the same amount of games played as you, but now you have to make up an extra 2 points that you're already trying to make up right now in catching them.
Yeah, their schedule starts to heat up. They've got a couple of them right here where
they got a soft one tonight with
Seattle, Columbus, whatever. They'll probably get points out of those. But then St. Louis, Nashville, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Vancouver, Edmonton, Minnesota, Colorado.
Yeah.
It really heats up in a significant way for Vegas after this weekend.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a big stretch. The Blues are going through a weak part of their schedule, not including the Vegas game, while a lot of these other teams are going through the heart of theirs. The Blues have got to find a way to be able to come away with a bunch of points up until next weekend. And that game against Vegas, we don't even have to say
monumental.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's the season.
Yeah,
if you lose that game, you're done. You are done. You can go ahead and write it off whatever the rest of the season.
Here's the other thing I find really interesting, too. Like, the Blues' last game of the season, they play on the 17th against the Dallas Stars. both Minnesota, Vegas, and LA, although I think LA's out of the conversation now, all of those teams play the day after you do. So your season is over after you play against Dallas. They all play, and Vegas plays the Ducks, Minnesota plays the Kraken. So you got cupcakes in terms of those matchups for those teams. So you have to build yourself a little bit of equity in terms of bridge the gap into the terms of that last game of the season can't be the decider for Vegas and Minnesota.
All right, let's get into the Blues going into this game tonight, Alex. They have made a bit of a lineup change. It looks like Sonny's going to be a healthy scratch. They're going to go with Zach Dean as the fourth-line center for tonight's game against Ottawa. They're going to stick with what they had previously in the other three lines. So it's just the fourth line that's going to be changing in terms of your forward group. I don't like it.
No, I don't either.
I don't like it. I don't think it was necessary to make this kind of a move. Now, I understand why you want to limit Zach Dean's playing time in a game like this, in a stretch like this, when points are at a premium. Like you really got to go for it. But if you're scared of playing Zach Dean, then don't play him. And if you want to get Zach Dean in there and you feel like he could really help you, and that's why you're going with this, then don't take Sonny out for him. Take out Kasperi Kapanen, bump up Kevin Hayes, move Booch back to the wing, and just go about it that way. If he's a natural centerman, they have said that publicly. Drew Bannister said, I don't think he needs to be on the wing in the NHL. I think he's ready to play center here. Cool. Do not put him on the fourth line, though. That's one of the very few lines, the only line, honestly, that you know exactly what you're getting from every single night. And now going into tonight's game, I don't know what it's going to look like because they replaced the guy that is the consistent engine of it.
Yeah, I don't like this move, mostly for the vibes check around the team. Like, you're in a playoff push right now, a guy that goes on the ice every single night, you know what to expect. And look, I understand what Bannister's saying. I mean, he hasn't had a point in 12 consecutive games. And it's not like you're seeing him impact the games, but his line is impacting the games. And that's the part for me that you pluck a guy that everybody loves out of the lineup and you put somebody else in, that's going to be a downer for those groups. Now, maybe you overcome that. It's a good game to get Zach Dean in because it's against the Ottawa Senators. So if he makes a mistake, you hope that the team can cover for it. But I'm 100% with you. And Joe and I talked about this post-game against the Avalanche. Like, you need to take Booch out of the center position. Booch is a guy that drives so much offense, you're wasting it by playing him at the center position. He needs to be on the wing. You put Shen back at the center position, or even if you like Shen on the wing because he has scored a lot of goals in this stretch, Hayes moves up, Sundqvist stays at the center position, and Zach Dean centers your fourth line. I don't like the way that you pluck a guy like Oscar Sundqvist out of the lineup. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish if you're Drew Bannister taking that guy out. If you have to tell people that was a tough conversation to have, then it's not a guy you take out of the lineup.
I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I really...
Like, are you trying to send a message? Because that's not the guy you need to send a message to.
If the fourth line didn't play well against the Avalanche, I could totally understand where it's like, hey, we need to get Dean a game. Let's figure out what we're going to do.
And it's not just
they almost beat the Avalanche single-handedly.
And it's not just the Avalanche. The Minnesota Wild game, that fourth line dictated the play of that game. The Boston Bruins game, the fourth line was impactful with the third line. I know you don't want to break up that third line, but guys, other than that Boston Bruins game, the third line was not driven by Kapanen. It was driven by Hayes and Saad. You move Toropchenko up to the third line, and Dean plays on the fourth line with Sundqvist on the wing. Now you've got the veteran to cover for Zach Dean if he seems like he's overmatched, and you know that Toropchenko's got 14 freaking goals on the season. Put him on the third line to get him more offensive opportunities.
Man, see, I think this is not hard at all. I think that you could just put Dean on a line with Braden Shen. Just call it a day.
I don't know if I wouldn't touch that top line. I mean, like, Shen's got 8 goals in his last 10 games. Like, I would keep him in that, 8 points in his last 10 games. I'd keep him in that spot. I would take Booch off of the wing and put him put at the center. I'd put Booch on wing. I'd put a Hayes in between him and Jordan Kyrou. I'd put a Sundqvist on the third line with Brandon Saad and Alexei Toropchenko. And then my fourth line would be Oscar Sundqvist on the wing with Zach Dean at center and Nathan Walker at wing. I think it's really simple. Dean played with Walker in Springfield for a little bit there, and if he doesn't work at the center position or he seems like he's overmatched, then you flip him back to the wing and Sundqvist. And then late in the game, you double shift Dean with Toropchenko when you sit him. And I didn't mention Bolduc in that one. Bolduc would be on that third line. It would be Bolduc with Oscar Sundqvist and Brandon Saad.
See, I would go Booch, Thomas, and Neighbors as my top line. Bolduc, Hayes, and Saad. Or excuse me, Bolduc, Hayes, and Kyrou, and then Shin, Dean, and Saad. That way you've got Dean surrounded by veterans. And I've got Bolduc surrounded by Hayes and Kyrou.
I don't know if I want Bolduc with Kyrou, though. That's my only hesitancy with it, and that's why.
Then you're going back to Butch Thomas and Kyrou.
Or you put Shen in Bolduc's spot. You move Bolduc down
with Dean.
Dean would be on my fourth line no matter what.
See, I don't want him as a fourth liner.
I think to start.
I want the fourth. The reason why I think that the decision to take out Sonny is wrong is because I want him on the fourth line. I don't need Sonny as my third line.
But that fourth
center.
line worked when Toropchenko was taken off of it. Like it worked in the past when
Not
Toropchenko.
to the same degree.
I think it can if you got Nathan Walker playing the way he's playing right now. And if Dean provides speed, that's what Toropchenko provides speed and size there. And Sundqvist can be the size. You just need the speed there. And the guys that you've tried in the past on the fourth line haven't provided speed.
I don't think Sonny's a top 9 forward. Is basically what I'm saying. Like,
I don't either. I think he's on your fourth line.
And that's why I wouldn't have him bump up in the lineup. I think that basically you're forcing Dean. What they're doing right now is they're forcing Dean into the lineup, and hopefully it works. If they're right, cool. But I don't know that this was a necessary decision.
If anything, it might have been a bad call-up by the Blues.
That's what I was just
It was
gonna say.
reactionary.
I think if Army could do one thing back since the deadline, it would be call up Dean. Because I think when he called up Dean, I think he honestly thought the team was dead in the water. And he was like, okay, well, we're going to call him up. We're going to let the kids play. And here we go. We'll see what Zach Dean is. Well, then they started to win, and now you look up and you go, oh, well, we're in a playoff spot. How do we get Dean in the lineup? We don't want him just sitting in the press box.
Now, the other side of that, though, is you called him up, and it might have lit a fire under every one of those players because they didn't want to come out of the lineup. But just because you lost a game, and I agree with Joe, just because you lost a game to Colorado, I know you want to change some things, but you didn't play bad against Colorado. You made 2 mistakes that costed you the game, and that's the part I don't understand with Sundqvist. The 2 mistakes that you made in that Colorado Avalanche game had nothing to do. If you're going to sit somebody because you feel like their games are tailing off, then you sit somebody who's making the mistakes right now, and that's not an Oscar Sundqvist.
He's Alex Ferrario, that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. You'll hear Alex coming up at 5 o'clock for the pregame show. Blues versus the Ottawa Senators tonight, a big game for the Blues. Zach Dean making his NHL debut, centering the fourth line. If you missed it, Sundqvist going to be out tonight. They will also be without Torrey Krug, according to reports from Ottawa. It sounds like he's going to be out of this one with a lower body injury. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're getting into our we're continuing our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals with number 7 on our list. But next, the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
to you by Fenton Bar and Grill. Best trashed wings in Missouri. Dine in, carry out, 7 days a week.
All right, let's dive into the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. You got BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. At 5 o'clock tonight, you'll have Alex's pregame show for the Blues versus the Ottawa Senators. That's right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. So, boys, we've all said, we've watched less, full transparency, we've watched less college basketball this season than we have in previous years. So when you're watching the games throughout the day-to-day, what are you rooting for? Are you rooting for your bracket despite the fact that you know nothing about any of this? Or are we ready to just enjoy the chaos if that's what's about to ensue?
Oh, yeah. I'm rooting for pure chaos. So anybody who has brackets out there that you're hoping work well, I'm rooting against your bracket. I want chaos. I like bracket busts.
What's the best storyline for this year? Like, if you could have one thing
Illinois
that
choking in the first round.
You suck. I just want you to know that.
That would be pretty excellent for the content.
I mean, you know.
If that happens right after our show today, and tomorrow we get to open with Illinois choking again in the
those flying Eagles, T-Bone. Watch out for them.
We get out to Helen Fitzgerald's tomorrow and just get to watch him in his misery.
I'm going to take
so many pictures. You've seen plenty of me with misery, whether it's the Chiefs in the playoffs.
I've seen you too happy with the Chiefs
or
recently.
Mizzou. Just Mizzou.
See, that's why you don't get attached to a team like me. You just never miserable.
Oh, yeah, no, it's gone really well for you with the Blues.
You weren't in the press box when they lost to Darren Helm and the Avalanche, so you didn't get to see how miserable I was.
So what do you think is the best pure storyline for this year's tournament?
I think the best thing that could happen is, I think it's the 15 seed Long Beach State. They fired their coach before the conference tournament.
I like that.
He went on and won the conference tournament and got into the NCAA tournament. They are a 15 seed. I can't remember who they're playing. They are playing Arizona. By the way, is not a, I don't think, it would not, it would be shocking if they lost this one. It would not shock anybody if they lost in like the second round or early in the Sweet 16. The AD came out today and said, well, the reason that this team ended up going on a run was because we fired the coach. The old coach's fire bump, even though he was still coaching.
Everybody does it now.
It would be awesome if Long Beach State beat Arizona. I don't even care if they don't even get past the second round. If they just win a tournament game after this guy's been fired, oh, that is chef's kiss.
Mine would be one of Purdue or UConn losing. Maybe not in the first round, but losing at some point. Because
Purdue losing in the first round against the 16 seed would be delicious.
That is,
I need that in my life.
Those tiers would be delicious because anybody who reports that there are this many brackets still alive are fooling themselves if Purdue wins or if Purdue loses.
I think for me it's McNeese State.
That would be ideal. Their head coach.
Their head coach is Will Wade, who was shipped off from LSU because he was the biggest cheater you could possibly find in all of college basketball. But guess what? Those rules no longer exist any longer.
True.
Now everybody's getting paid, and it's all out in the open. It's all legal. It's all above board. So Will Wade goes to McNeese State. He puts together this team. They're pretty damn good. A lot of people are picking them illegally to beat Gonzaga. Guess who their second-round matchup would potentially be against?
Wouldn't it?
The other team that is constantly cheating over the last 20 years, the Kansas Jayhawks, who are entering this tournament with a whole lot of injuries, and if they don't win against Samford, well, then they play Samford, and I think there's a pretty decent chance that McNeese State could go along there. They are on the top half of that region with Purdue.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a quote-unquote Cinderella story that is the best storyline of this year's tournament, I think it's McNeese State, given how they got their head coach, who he is, what he represents, and what now exists within the landscape of college basketball. McNeese State, to me, is the best storyline that can come out of this year's NCAA tournament.
Just give me chaos. That's all I want. That's all I ask in these marches when I don't have as much invested, although my parlays on the Circus Sports Illinois apps are pretty invested. But
who are you guys rooting for outside of storyline? You got anybody outside of like Illinois, of course?
That I actually wants to see win?
You know who I want to see win? And it's a chalk answer, but I love it because he came out and he defended the NCAA tournament. John Calipari and the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yeah.
He came out and he said the NCAA tournament is fine how it is. We don't need to change it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't like John Calipari, but I gained some respect for that man. And even though I originally had Oakland winning that game, I changed my mind. Give me the Kentucky Wildcats to meet the Fighting Illini in the championship.
Give me a Wildcat roar. Rawr. That was terrible.
It could have been worse.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
That was pretty good. Gary liked it.
I think I'm rooting for Marquette. The Shaka Smart saga, the arc of who he is as a coach, like to come in and be at VCU the next hot shot young coaching candidate, and he was there while Brad Stevens was kind of up and coming as well, and both of them went in a very different path, obviously, with Brad Stevens going to the NBA and coaching the Celtics, and Shaka Smart taking his talents down to Austin where he was the head coach at Texas. It just didn't work. It wasn't a good fit. He didn't belong there. That's not the type of program that he should be in charge of. But it's working at Marquette. He is a really good basketball coach. There's just too much political stuff that you have to deal with. And I'm not talking about actual politics, but like behind-the-scenes stuff with donors and everything at Texas that you have to deal with. There's certain coaches that don't work there. So to see him go on a run this year at Marquette, that's a guy that I always root for. Him and then Kelvin Sampson I've always really liked as well, and they just never seem to have success. So if the one or the two comes out of that region in the South and they end up winning the title, I'll be pretty happy.
Morehead State.
Of course.
I hate you.
He's Alex Ferrario. He's an idiot. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley.
I like
DK
T-Bone's
Ferrario
tears.
here on 101 ESPN. We're going to be joined by DB Sweeney coming up in about 15 minutes. He's an actor. He starred in the Shoeless Joe Jackson film called 8 Men Out. He's also going to be participating in the Puck Cancer Game coming up on April 5th. That is the game that is going to be donating a bunch of money to cancer research. So we will get into that with him, why he's participating, how he got involved, coming up in 15 minutes. But next, our 20 most important countdown continues with number 7 on the list. We'll tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN.
easy to enjoy.
The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season.
Number 7, Brendan Donovan.
Swing, high fly ball toward right. Springer going back to the track, to the wall. That ball is gone. We are tied. Swing and a drive, hit high in the air, deep right. Number 10 ties the game. Up the middle, diving play. Donovan scrambles, fires, and got him. What a play up the middle. Brendan Donovan.
At number 7 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season, it is Brendan Donovan. He was at number 9 on Alex's list of the 20 most important Cardinals. At number 8 on my list, T-Bone had him all the way up at number 6 among his 20 most important Cardinals.
Flo gave him bonus points.
Brendan Donovan can play anywhere. He's a good second baseman. He plays in the corners, out in the outfield. He can play third base, first base if you need him to. If you need him to play a little bit of short, he probably could. It's not ideal, though, and that's why they went out and signed Crawford. Alex, why did you have him so high on your list of the 20 most important Cardinals? What led to that ranking?
Because if you look at how they played last year when he was injured and not with the team, you saw a massive dip. Now, there were a lot of other factors into that of guys that were falling apart, and you saw the pieces that they were trying to put Band-Aids over the holes. But the spark that Brendan Donovan provided and the attitude that he provided to that team and being that super utility guy, I think there were so many factors into him being such a pivotal piece for that Cardinals roster to have success. And you saw the offense just take a massive turn when he was gone. I don't know if they have a better leadoff hitter than Brendan Donovan. I don't know if they have a better guy who knows how to work a strike zone, knows when to get on base, knows when to be patient, knows when to start swinging. And when you take that guy out of a lineup that is going to be so highly reliant upon base runners, I think you're talking about a piece that if you plug him out of the lineup, you're looking at where they're going to get offense for Goldschmidt and Arenado when they start hitting.
Yeah, the reason I had him so high was because I think he's their best leadoff hitter. And I think it's important to have someone that's going to get on base and get on in front of Goldie, so Goldie doesn't have to serve as the second leadoff guy and can be more of a run producer in the 2-hole, along with Gorman and Arenado and those that follow behind him. And he's a Swiss Army knife. They can play him everywhere, you know. They can convince themselves that he can be their starting left fielder and force Victor Scott down to the minor leagues. If there are injuries that take place, if Arenado misses time, he can go to third base if they had to. If there's an injury in the outfield again, they can go back to him in that spot. And his competitive at-bats are just unbelievable how good his batter's eye is and his on-base. 381 on base through 221 career games is unbelievable. So that's why I had him so high on my list. Swiss Army knife, best leadoff hitter, and honestly I didn't take it into account, but I probably should have. Arguably the best leader returning from the team from last year.
I love watching Brendan Donovan play baseball. He's one of my favorite players on the team. You guys know that. He's the guy that I got a jersey for last year. When I went out, Kara got a jersey for Jordan Walker. I got a Brendan Donovan jersey. I think he is everything that the Cardinals want to be.
It would have been great if they traded him in the offseason after he bought that jersey.
It would have been very upsetting. Last season, if you just go by his on-pace numbers, he obviously didn't finish the season after getting the surgery, but he was on pace last season for 20 doubles and 20 home runs and a .365 on-base percentage. Guys to do that recently for the Cardinals. Goldie's done it in 21 and 22. Carpenter did it in 17 and 18. Tommy Pham did it. Carpenter also did it in 15. Matt Holliday did it in 12, 13, 14. We're talking about the guys that had some of the best seasons that we've seen recently by the St. Louis Cardinals. That is the kind of player that Brendan Donovan has become for the Cardinals. If they had a gap this year at second base, if there was any sort of an issue with the back for Nolan Gorman, he can fill in more than capably there. Early on this year, we're talking about it right now. Lars Nootbaar probably going to miss the first couple of weeks of the season. Guess who's the most likely candidate to fill in there? Well, it's going to be Brendan Donovan. If they have an extended period of time, God forbid, where Goldie ends up leaving the game for a while, it's probably going to be Brendan Donovan there as well. He is the modern-day version of Ben Zobrist. He's the closest thing we have, in my opinion, right now in the game to Ben Zobrist, and that's what he can be for you as a team. You need guys like Brendan Donovan on a winning baseball club. He can be that for you this season. Now, you got to have the pieces around him. He's not a superstar. He's never going to be that. You should never ask him to be that. But if you ask him to be in the super utility role so other guys can stay in the same position all the time so they don't have to be moving around the field, I think that's the best way to utilize him.
You know who he reminds me a little of? It was that first year that Matt Carpenter came up with the Cardinals. And it was because I don't know if Brendan Donovan came out of nowhere, but you didn't expect the production that Matt Carpenter provided his first year like Brendan Donovan
Came out of nowhere
did.
for us. I think if you're like Kyle Reese watches all these prospects down in the minor leagues, he told us to watch out for Brendan Donovan.
Yeah.
People that were paying attention to the minor leagues, they really liked his game. But for people that were a little more like casual observers of the minor leagues, yeah, he came out of nowhere for us.
But if you remember that first season with Matt Carpenter on the roster, of course, obviously he was the doubles king that we were all talking about, and you brought him up. But that roster that they had in place was already chock full of guys that were veterans and guys that you felt like could lead a winning team. And then it was like, oh, well, this Matt Carpenter is just it's a perfect accessory piece to this roster that we've already got in place. That's what Brendan Donovan feels like for me going into the season.
Yeah, he reminds me. It's a good point because I don't think he doesn't hit for the doubles that Carpenter did. But the thing that I think he reminds me so much of Matt Carpenter early on in his career was Carp always gave you a competitive at bat, and his batter's eye was unbelievable. And that's what Brendan Donovan is. I mean, you're going to get a competitive at bat. The first at bat of a game is not going to be like 2 pitches. Like when they had Tommy Edman leading off in 21, I think it was. It was like 2 pitches. Tommy Edman was either going to get a hit or he was going to be an out. That's not the case with Donovan. He's going to force 6, 7 pitches to start the game.
By the way, I think they should just leave him in the leadoff spot all year.
I agree.
I don't think this should be we're going to move him around, we're going to go with different matchups or anything like that. Brendan Donovan has proven more than capable of being at the top of your order against left-handed pitchers as well. Is he ideal in that scenario? No, but he's fine. And when they go to their bullpen, he's the guy that you want at the top of the order, grinding those at-bats out. He profiles as a leadoff hitter. I don't know what that means for Lars Nootbaar whenever he returns. It probably means he bats 6th for you. I think that's kind of where he should profile, honestly. For a contending club, I think Lars Nootbaar fits as a 6-hole hitter. So I think that's how I would do it. I like Gorman in that 3-hole. I like Brendan Donovan at the top of your order, grinding out those at-bats, being a good base runner for you. I think it makes a lot of sense having him up there regardless of who the matchup is.
And I feel like with Nootbaar, it's always been, well, he could probably hit like 270, 280, have that high 350 on base, and be a guy that hits 20 home runs. You haven't seen it from Nootbaar yet. Like, the on base and the average were there last year, but he didn't play in the games to get to that 20 home run mark. And I know Donovan didn't either.
Consistency isn't the same.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, where there are certain guys that are just steady Eddie, right? They're going to be a 260 hitter. They're going to go 1 for 4 every day throughout the baseball season. And then there are other guys that'll go 4 for 4 one day, 0 for 4 the next, 0 for 4 the next, and then 3 for 4. Like, that's Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah.
So I prefer that consistency at the top of my lineup.
I'm with you. And I think if I said who's more likely to have a higher OPS, because they were close last year, Donovan 787, Nootbaar 784, I would take Donovan.
I would be more confident in Donovan, but if you
pop.
ask me who's got the 900 OPS, like who's more likely to hit that, it would probably be Lars Nootbaar for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I can
higher
see,
upside, lower floor.
I'd agree with that. I think though, I think Donovan can get 20 home runs this year. Like, I really do. I know a lot of people say, really?
Well, according to you guys, 7 other Cardinals are going to get 20 home runs this year.
I think our whole starting lineup.
4 others.
No, you guys said 8.
They have 8 that are capable.
The hell out of here.
Thomas and JC could do it as well if he played up here for the entirety.
I've heard that Michael Sinise could do it too.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. That is our 7th most important Cardinal for the 2024 season. We'll continue our countdown tomorrow with number 6 on the list, one of Alex's favorite players to discuss. We'll get into that tomorrow here on PK and Ferrario. Coming up next, we're talking to DB Sweeney. He's an actor. He starred in a movie as Shoeless Joe Jackson. He is also going to be participating in the Blues Puck Cancer Game coming up on April 5th. We'll ask him how he got involved in that, why this means so much to him, coming up next year on 101 ESPN. DB Sweeney has a more important call to get to right now, so we'll get to him coming up here in just a little bit. He starred as Shoeless Joe Jackson in 8 Men Out and was the voice of the main character in the 2000 Disney film Dinosaur. We'll talk to him about all of that, and he was in The Cutting Edge back in 1992. I want to ask him how long it took for him to learn how to skate like that. We'll get into all of that with DB Sweeney and why he's participating in the Puck Cancer game on April 5th.
Well, he's playing in that game. You hope his response is, oh, I know how to skate. I play hockey all the time, because he's playing in that charity game. Otherwise, you got to figure out how to skate pretty quick.
Well, he was in the movie The Cutting Edge, which is a hockey movie.
Really? It is?
Indeed.
Huh.
So yeah, I think he knows how to skate. It was 30 years ago, though. So
stunt doubles, you know?
Yeah, I thought I could pick up skating after not doing it for 2 years. Update, I left with a lot of bruises.
I still can't skate. I'm still the guy that holds onto the wall at Steinberg's.
Really?
I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm terrible.
I can't go backwards,
I can't go backwards in anything.
I would be a horrendous defenseman because there's zero chance that I could. I would just have to skate forward and then turn and hope
they don't stop.
Oh yeah, I can't skate backwards. Roller skating, roller blading, or ice skating. It's terrible.
All right, Alex, let's get to the Blues for a bit before we hear from DB Sweeney here in just a moment. Which player, in your opinion, is under the most scrutiny the rest of the way? Who has the most to prove?
It's Jordan Kyrou. And I missed the Jordan Kyrou Love Fest yesterday, so I apologize with that one, especially on BK's perspective. But I really think it comes down to Jordan Kyrou. And I know there's a large group out there that looks at Jordan Kyrou and says, like, he's better than what you guys give him credit for. And I do think that there is talent there. But look at what the team is doing with him. They've now dropped him off of the top line with Robert Thomas, which they've done everything they could to get Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas working, and they had to break that up. They took him off the first power play unit and replaced him with Braden Shen, which should tell you an awful lot there. I think the Blues are starting to show you that, hey, it's kind of getting to our wits' end with Jordan Kyrou of, if you can't be our top line player and we're going to have to use you on the second line, then does it make sense for us to move forward with you as a piece of this group? Because right now you have to start weeding out the options of, does this guy make sense for our future? How does he play into our future plans? And I think if you're Jordan Kyrou, you're going to need a moment between now and the end of the season where you take over a game. Remember that New York Rangers game where he was under so much scrutiny and he came out, he scored a hat trick, he could have had 6 goals in that game. If you're him, you're going to need one of those games by the end of the season that turns people's minds in terms of, yeah, I can see how he fits into this group. Because if you play like this the rest of the way, I do think you're going to have to make some tough decisions in the offseason of, do we have to make a change of scenery trade here?
T-Bone, who would you have on that list? The most scrutinized player the rest of the way for the Blues?
I mean, I think it probably is just Jordan Kyrou on that list. I don't know if there is another Blue, because I think the defenseman, we already know that the Blues would
Let me ask a follow-up then. Let me ask this a different way. Does the answer change if I'm saying from Doug Armstrong's perspective, who is the most scrutinized player? Because I think that is the correct answer for fans.
I think that's Doug Armstrong's too.
Okay.
I mean, like, you fired a Stanley Cup caliber coach. You brought in an interim head coach to get that to work. He put that player on the top line with Robert Thomas from the moment Craig Berube was fired and didn't break them up until last game. I think if you're Doug Armstrong, you're looking at this saying, like, man, we invested in this early because we thought there were big things, and it hasn't panned out yet this season. If 2 coaches can't get through this guy's head, what else needs to happen?
Am I crazy if I say the answer is Justin Falk?
But I feel like we know that they need to get out of those contracts. Is that fair? Like, for Falk, Krug, I won't throw Letty in here. I think Letty's played up to his value. I think for those 2 guys, I think if the Blues could say, like, you got 2 mulligans, they would probably do those 2 defenseman deals. So I feel like they're trying actively to get out of those just because they need that cap space. So that's why I would say they probably wouldn't fit this list for me.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Justin Falk or Torrey Krug, I think the Blues have figured out who they are and how they play for this team. Like, I think they feud now that you have to have Matt Kessel play with Torrey Krug, gets the best out of him. We can't play Krug and Falk together, and Falk works on a third pair. The problem with that also is I think Doug Armstrong in the front office knows those contracts aren't easy to move on from. Yeah. No trade clauses, and other teams have seen what he's performed with. We've talked with 3 national analysts that all have told us Jordan Kyrou's a star. And if national analysts believe that, you have to imagine scouts around the National Hockey League still believe it. I think in the Jordan Kyrou case, a team can convince themselves like a Tage Thompson of, yeah, it may not have looked good in St. Louis, but we could get the best out of them. I think if a team looks at Justin Falk and Torrey Krug, it's, yeah, what are you attaching to this if we make a trade?
I think that's probably true. I also think it's something the Blues have to consider if this thing continues to go sideways. If they learn the rest of the way that defensively they're not good enough and they've got to find a way to move the money, right? Because that's a big part of this conversation. It's not just where do you upgrade, it's how do you upgrade? How do you get the money to be able to do that? I think Falk is one of those guys. Like if you told me, hey, BK, you can move on from one of these two contracts. Which one would you be more likely to move on from, Jordan Kyrou or Justin Falk? I would be more likely to press the Justin Falk eject button than the Jordan Kyrou eject button.
I'd agree. Oh,
yeah, but I don't think you could get anything in return for Justin Falk that makes you better. I think you can get something in return for Jordan Kyrou that like, what if you could trade Jordan? And look, these are all hypotheticals. Maybe they don't even look at this as viewing trade Jordan Kyrou. But what if you could get a restricted free agent that's younger, that needs a change of scenery, that only costs you $4 or $5 million for the next 4 or 5 years? Like the one that comes to mind for me, what if Shane Pinto becomes available from the Ottawa Senators and they say, we need more established players that can create offense. We need a top-line guy, and we don't want to pay the money for the Shane Pinto ones. What if you swap it that way and you say, great, we just got a 23-year-old kid that's going to cost me $4.5 million. I just opened up $4 million in cap space. I got a top-6 winger in return. Now I can go add that money elsewhere.
And what I would do, like the difference between our two plans, I would use the money. Like I know I'm not getting anything in return. I might even have to attach an asset to Justin Falk to make it work. But I would go use that $6.5 million and see who the best center is that I can find. What can I do to patch together my second-line center? Because right now you don't have one. If we're just being honest. I don't think Braden Shin is that at this point in his career. He's a third-line center if he wants to play center, or he can be a middle six winger for you. And that means at times playing up on the top line. Like he's more than capable of doing that. But I don't think this team has a second-line center. And until they do, I don't think they're going to be able to reach their ceiling. That may end up being Dalibor Dvorsky, but it's going to take time.
Yeah.
He's not going to be that right away. And if you want to push this thing forward a little bit, that's probably the move that I'd like to see them make.
I think the tough part for the Blues at this point is going to be when Jimmy Snuggerud comes over and you see how he performs, and then you sit there and say, where does this $8 million player fit in if Jake Neighbors, Jimmy Snuggerud all outperform how this player is playing? Because at some point you have to bury that player down deeper into your lineup if he's not making sense elsewhere, and that's a really tough thing to do. We're seeing it right now, the ramifications of certain guys that have to be buried in your lineup for how much money you're paying them. What if you have to do that again for $8 million? No trade clause kicks in.
I would go the opposite direction of, hey man, if this team has 3 wingers that are playing, like if you got Kyrou just changing nothing, Snuggerud comes in and plays well, Neighbors continues playing the way that he is now, and now I've got Buchnevich, Saad, and Shin on my other wings, and I bring in a number 2 center. Now we're talking about a real top 9 in terms of your forward group, and I don't have to worry about that 4th line because I know I've already got that taken care of going into next year. Now I've got Matt Kessel as my replacement for Justin Falk, and I feel like we can start really like going on a little bit of a run here.
This is why, I mean, to what T-Bone brought up in the past, and it's going to be the tough decisions because it was either Booch or Kyrou. Which one are you going to make the decision on? And maybe it was both, maybe it wasn't both, but at some point you're going to have to make a decision on which direction you're going to go.
Sure.
And that's going to start in July, on the 1st of July, when Doug Armstrong sits down with his representatives and finds out what he wants.
And I think if you trade Jordan Kyrou, I think that's the hardest one to replace compared to a Justin Falk if you trade him. But I think if you trade Jordan Kyrou, I don't think it's about production. I don't think it's about looking for an upgrade. I think it was, we talked about the tree with David Backus.
The culture.
The culture.
That's a good
I think
point.
It was a culture trade, if anything else.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us. We are broadcasting live from Cybergs in O'Fallon, Illinois. Come on out, enjoy some food, a cold Bud Light, 101 ESPN giveaways, and plenty more. We've got the screens all on here today where you can watch the NCAA tournament. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. The Fast Lane will be here until 6. It's all brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Excuse me, the fast lane will be here until 5.
Well, they'll probably stick
be
around
here
an
until
extra hour,
5
right?
o'clock. But I'm sure they'll grab some Bud Lights with you guys,
Yeah.
hang out, say hello.
Kerry wants to see if Illinois can get past that juggernaut that is Morehead State.
Kissing babies, shaking hands, they're doing it all. Randy's coming in today, so you know he's going to be the mayor of St. Louis out here. It'll be a fantastic time. All right, coming up next, we'll give you an update on what's taking place right now in the NCAA tournament, including why I never trust this team, T-Bone. I told you not to. I won't do it now. We'll get into that and some NFL quick hitters next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We are live at Cyberg's in O'Fallon, Illinois. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. The Fast Lane will be here until 5. Come on by, enjoy some food, cold Bud Light, 101 ESPN giveaways, and so much more. Watching the tournament right now, Arizona struggling against Long Beach State. Long Beach State up 26-24 with about 5 minutes to go in the first half. It's looking a heck of a lot like what happened last year to Arizona, and this is why I never trust that team.
I don't buy it. They're Wildcats. Watch out now.
We'll get back to that coming up here in just a little bit. But right now, we are happy to be joined via the 101 ESPN hotline by D.B. Sweeney. He's an actor. He starred as Shoeless Joe Jackson in 8 Man Out. He was the voice of the main character in the 2000 Disney film called Dinosaur. He also, I would assume, learned how to skate for The Cutting Edge, a film about 30 years ago about figure skating. He joins us now via the 101 ESPN hotline, and he does so because he's going to be participating in the upcoming Blues Puck Cancer game on April 5th. DB, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. How'd you get involved in this game? Is it a connection that you have with Kelly Chase? Is it a Blues connection? How'd you get involved in this?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Kelly's an old friend. I think all roads lead through Kelly Chase in the Lou. So when everybody heard about what he was dealing with, I think it was pretty easy to assemble the troops, and really excited to come down on the 5th and play in the game. They're having it at the Centene Community Ice Center, and it's really come together quickly. We've got a great bunch of people, and hopefully we'll raise a lot of money and awareness to help fight this cancer.
How did you find out about Kelly Chase's diagnosis, DB?
Through the grapevine. I don't know. I have a lot of friends. You mentioned The Cutting Edge earlier. When I did that movie, I kind of, became one of the usual suspects in Hollywood anytime there was a hockey connection. And I've got a lot of friends in the hockey world. Your trainer at St. Louis, Ray Borelli, is one of my close friends. So, I know a lot of guys in that St. Louis Blues orbit.
So with that being said, DB, and when you look at that roster of the other guys that are playing in it, like the group that you're on, I think Dave Coulier is going to be playing in that game. I think Dirks Bentley is playing on the other side in that game. Sean Payton as the head coach. When you look through that roster, do you see just a bunch of stars? Chris Chelios is an old friend of mine, so it'll be fun I've got out there with him before, and these games are always so much fun because, obviously the pros are going to take it to half speed so they don't embarrass guys like me and Cooler or Bentley or, non-pros, so, and it's fun, it's fun because if you put your stick in the right place, the puck's going to hit it. So it's always a fun time, and it's just everybody feels good about rallying behind Chaser.
DB Sweeney is our guest here on 101 ESPN. DB, you did the movie about 30 years ago. How's your skating at this point? Are you still getting out on the ice regularly?
Yeah. I get out about once a week. I'm here. I'm living in Nashville now, and I got out about a week ago. And unfortunately, there was a guy in the skate who thought he was trying out for the Predators, playing 900 miles an hour, and he smashed into me knee to knee. So I'm a little hobbled, but I think I'll be 100% by the 5th.
Well, that should give you a little heebie-jeebies, though, going into this one. Did you see the roster on the other side? Chaser, Tony Twist, Brendan Shanahan. That can't be...
Cam Jansen.
Yeah, Cam Jansen. That can't be very easy going when you look at the roster on the other side.
No, I'm just going to make sure that I bring Mr. Twist his coffee the way he likes it pregame and make sure that he has everything he needs so he's in a good mood.
Or if anything, you just tell Coach Sean Payton, like, hey, don't put me out there when those guys take the ice. Put me out there when some of the other ones take the ice.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I think I'll leave it to the pros. I'll play as little as they let me.
DB, give us a scouting report. What position are you going to be playing? How would you describe your game?
I usually play right wing, and I can skate a little bit, but I have 0 hands. I'm kind of like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm liable to run into you, but I won't be able to pick you up.
Net front presence, right?
Net front presence all the way. Yeah, I can tip the puck. That's one thing I can do.
And if you tip the puck in, have you decided on the celebration, and will you celebrate when you skate by the other team's bench?
You know what? I try to take a page out of Brett Hull's playbook, which is they already know who scored. I don't want to make them feel any worse about it. So if by some miracle I manage to knock one in, it's going to be very subtle.
DB Sweeney's going to be at the Puck Cancer game. He'll be participating. That's coming up on April 5th. It's going to be an unbelievable event. Barrett Jackman, Pierre Turgeon, Brad Hall, Chris Chelios, Dirks Bentley is going to be there. I know Alex is excited about that as a country music fan. His team will be coached by Denver Broncos head football coach Sean Payton as well.
And Garth Brooks.
How about that?
Yeah.
All the proceeds are going towards cancer research through the Jimmy V Foundation. So if you want to check this out, if you just go to the Blues website, you'll see it there. Otherwise, through the Centene Community Ice Center, that is where you can get your tickets right now. Again, it's April 5th, coming up on that Friday. DB, thanks so much for hopping on with us today, man. Thanks for bringing some exposure to an unbelievable cause here in St. Louis. We look forward to seeing you at the game, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for supporting us. And people can also go to the St. Louis Blues alumni site. There's a button there if they want to donate if they can't make the game. And, we're all going to try and do everything we can to knock this thing out.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, DB. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You got it. That's
Cool.
DB Sweeney. Appreciate him joining us on the show today. Again, if you want any information on this, if you just Google the Centene Community Ice Center, you'll see all of the information there to be able to buy your tickets. Some pretty excellent participants going to be at this game coming up. Again, it's on April the 5th.
Yeah, especially, so like the coaches is the part, and I heard Chaser talking about this when he was on the opening drive last week. The coaching side, you've got Garth Brooks and Sean Payton as the coach for the NHL alumni side, but then on the Blue side, it's Brett Hull and Joel Quenneville. Like, you talk about two guys that are impactful for the city of St. Louis, specifically on the St. Louis Blues. Those two guys, it's going to be really entertaining, and they've got a lot of star power that's going to be performing in those games.
All right, let's get back to the NCAA tournament. Arizona is tied with Long Beach State.
Don't worry about it, man. It's fine.
There's 3 minutes left in the first half.
Attaboy, Arizona.
They're keeping it close.
If they lose this game, they've got to fire their head coach. I'm not trying to be reactionary here and do the hot take thing. 2 years in a row, as a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that Princeton team was good.
Maybe the problem is
Mizzou found out. You can't even argue. He wanted. He
hard
looked
for me to argue otherwise right now.
He looked at me and was going to go, "Are you serious?" And then he remembered, "Oh wait, yeah, that too Mizzou lost."
Maybe
too.
the problem is the committee and the rankings, and they should have Arizona as a 2 seed.
Long Beach State has that new coach or fired coach bump, even
They
though he's still
fired
there.
their coach, and he is currently on the sidelines biding his time because he happens to go on a run in their conference championship.
That is the new coach bump, though. Like, we are learning in St. Louis, when you fire a coach mid-season, you get a bump that puts you in the playoffs.
True.
And they said we need to do it going into the tournament so our team's feeling good about
Funny
themselves.
is
This
AD
doesn't
still
feel
saying they're doing
fluky.
it.
They
No.
look better.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened. Seriously, what T-Bone said is true. Like, last year at halftime of that game, because they were playing at the same time that Mizzou was, if I remember correctly. We were watching that together out in Alton, Illinois, and we just kept watching. We're like, man, at some point you got to assume Arizona's athleticism is going to show up. They're going to be better than Princeton. At no point did that happen, despite the expectation going in of them winning by like 15. The same thing's happening again.
They just showed a graphic. They're shooting 6 for 17 from the three-point line so far. You're shooting that poorly, and they've taken 17 three-pointers. I'd probably start trying to get inside a little bit more.
Hey, you can't make the shots you don't shoot.
Creighton, by the way.
Easy, Michael Scott.
Thank you.
Creighton finally starting to pull away a bit. They're up 47-38 against Akron. About 17 and a half minutes to play left
How's
in that
Duquesne
one.
doing?
Duquesne
Only
is
up by
currently
2.
up.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Only up by 2. Come on,
58
Duquesne.
to 56.
Because BK threw money down on BYU.
With under 3 minutes to play.
No, they're just making it close so he can ruin his hopes. Akron.
I'm really rooting for Long Beach State. That's the one that I want to see. So I could get one of those upset, it would be Long Beach State.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just put money down on Long Beach State to pull off the upset. I think it was plus 800 when I did it. They look like the better team right now. Now, we'll see if Arizona, what I would tell fans that want to put down money on that game, I would wait till 5 minutes into that second half. 5 minutes in, you'll really know if Long Beach State can hang around.
Just got mine in right now. I went over to the Circus Sports app and
now
I
you
said,
lost money, man. You should have told him to do it.
please give me that live money line at 10 to 1.
Wow,
Yes,
you
sir.
got those tight splits too, baby.
That's right.
My parlay's looking crisp right now.
Is it? Didn't you lose?
No. That was
I thought
one.
you had
Literally the
Mississippi
first leg of your
Yeah,
parlay.
that was
the
one of them.
very first leg.
That was one of them, and then I just built that same parlay minus the one I lost in another one. So we're good.
NCAA March Madness just tweeted out, by the way, 43% of the brackets were wrecked in game number 1.
Man.
43% of people had Mississippi State beating Michigan State.
If Long Beach wins, then all of them are broken.
I don't know. Some smart people probably picked them just because they didn't believe in Arizona, because Arizona is always a team that you should pick to lose early.
Just stop it already, okay?
You did not pick them in your bracket.
No, but I picked Arizona to lose
You're acting
early.
wild with the Cats right now, okay?
Yeah. That was good. That was nice.
The rewind is next.
Kickstart your mornings with the opening drive on one.
drink, easy to enjoy.
Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lube, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Oh, I'm gone tomorrow. You should stick around a little bit today. About an hour? Please? It's supposed to be an alt, man. Please. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live from Cybergs out in O'Fallon, Illinois, where we are watching the NCAA tournament. Duquesne up 65-60
first leg of the parlay,
with about 19 seconds to go in that one. Meanwhile, we are heading into the half with Long Beach State now down 41-35. I think the BKO has officially hit them in that one. You can join us out here. We're broadcasting live at Cybergs in O'Fallon. We are here for another 10 minutes, and then the Fast Lane will take you up until 5 o'clock. They might stick around until 6, though. We'll see. We'll see how they're feeling. Maybe we'll grab a couple of beers, eat a little food.
Gary's ready to chat it up with everybody.
I think me and T-Bone are going to hang out for an hour, as you could probably guess. Alex is going to get out of here as fast as humanly possible because he hates all of you.
I got a broadcast tonight, okay?
That's 5.
Yeah, pregame at 5. There's a lot that goes into pregame starting at 5.
Stop it. We just did your pregame coverage right here.
Excuse me.
Show today.
I got to shoot a video with the great Mike Ryder.
I can do that for you right here.
I got to voice a couple of wonderful liners.
We could have a fan do that for you today.
My voice is shot.
I don't know if we're better off if you or the fan doing the liners.
I already texted Joe and I said, hope you're cool carrying the pregame tonight, buddy.
He said, what changed? Sorry.
Whoa.
Now I know why you're leaving.
I'm out sick tomorrow. I'll stick around tomorrow an extra hour because BK's got to duck out right after the show.
I know. I'm leaving. I'm going out to Kansas City to see the family.
I'm the only one that cares about the fans.
I'll stay tomorrow because that's my people.
Hey, if we were going to be the same place back-to-back days, we would have gone out. We would have stayed somewhere in that town.
You always find a way to complain.
Yeah, you really do. You are the worst complainer on this show.
Like my mother.
Oh,
worse.
If only people knew Alex behind the scenes.
Yeah, I know. They'd know T-Bone was the biggest complainer on this show.
For sure. All right, let's finish up the show today. Let's look ahead at what is going to take place the rest of the afternoon in the college basketball landscape. T-Bone, your squad.
Oh, baby.
In 17 minutes, will tip off against Morehead State. And this line, I believe, has moved towards Morehead State a bit. It's an 11.5-point line. I've seen Morehead as a trendy upset pick in some parts.
2 hours and 17 minutes. We can all taste the tears of Tanner Hendrickson.
How are you feeling about this one heading into tip?
I'm really nervous because I know this is the Brad Underwood special of choking in the tournament. I think they should win. I think their offense will be able to overcome any defensive issues they have. One thing that does worry me, because what's the theme of a team that's going to pull off a big upset? It's three-point shooting. And Morehead State can shoot the three-point ball well. If the defense is lackluster for the
Illinois plays great defense.
Yeah, I know. If the defense is lackluster today and the offense, for whatever reason, cannot find a rhythm, I wouldn't rule out a Morehead State upset. I would say I'm probably 80%, though, confident that the Illini can win this one.
95%. Illinois is advancing.
Yeah,
95%. Morehead State is totally upsetting everybody.
Illinois
today.
will advance. They'll win by 15 in this one against Morehead State.
What if they don't? By the way, and I'm just.
I won't be here tomorrow.
No, not just you, but like as an Illinois fan, it's got to be miserable. Like moving forward, there's no trust in your team ever.
The funny thing is like I trust Underwood to like build a roster together. It's a matter of if he's not going to choke.
But how many years have we been saying that with his group?
That's the thing. Like I think next year his seat would be really hot if they had a first-round exit because he's losing so much talent that he's going to have to replace it.
He's won 3 Big Ten championships?
Yeah, two or three.
Yeah, but every year I hear T-Bone talking about going into the tournament, how the team's got a chance to get to the Elite Eight.
This year is inexcusable because this is the best team he's had, in my opinion. I know a lot of people may say that IU, Kofi Coburn team. Outside of those two, though, there wasn't a surrounding cast.
Yeah, there was no bench for that team.
This year they've got a decent bench. They've got guys that can play. They can run like 7, 8 guys deep. This is his best team, and that's why if they don't get to the second weekend and not even the Elite Eight, I would call it disappointing.
All right, let's go through a few more of these picks. We'll do this rapid fire style.
I ripped up my bracket already.
Just give me your
Doty, get it out of the trash.
I think you had Wagner over North Carolina.
No. Oregon is a 1.5-point favorite against South Carolina. Who you got?
I had Oregon in that one.
I've got South Carolina.
Oregon. Nevada is a 1.5-point favorite against Dayton. Who you got?
I had Nevada.
I think I've got Dayton, if I remember correctly.
Go, Pack, go. Colorado State is a 2.5-point underdog against Texas. Who you got?
I took Texas in that one.
I've got Texas as well.
Colorado State, baby.
Oh, man,
Kentucky.
we're a great
We
team.
know T-Bone is a big fan of them this year
Like
against
John
Oakland.
Calipari.
Who you got?
I have Kentucky.
Rawr. I got the Wildcats.
Are you
terrible Wildcat?
Do you have enough guts to take McNeese State
Yes.
against Gonzaga?
Yeah.
No, I took Gonzaga, but I did take Samford over Kansas.
McNeese
If you want
State's not
cojones, that was what I did.
I like
Miley knows how
Gonzaga
to
in
cheat
this
with the
one
best
as
of them.
well. South Dakota State against Iowa State. You going to take the Jackrabbits?
Oh, I took Iowa
I
State.
put Iowa State on upset watch, but I don't got the guts
Get
to take
those
them.
Jackrabbits out of here. BYU just nailed a three-pointer. Now they're down by 2.
Can St. Peter's win head-to-head against
No.
the 2-seeded Tennessee?
No.
Next question.
Yeah. By the way, Tennessee's head coach, I told you guys this a couple days ago, looks like Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World.
Basically the same.
Minus the
Don't know that
mustache.
reference.
Texas Tech. Oh, man.
Jesus.
Texas Tech is a 4.5-point favorite against NC State.
ACC sucks, so Texas Tech.
I think I took Texas Tech in
I've
that
got
one.
Texas Tech in my Elite Eight. Samford against Kansas. Who you
Samford,
got?
baby, all the way.
It's a trap. Take the Jayhawks.
It's a trap.
I like Kansas in this one. The line has moved back towards Kansas a little bit more. It was down to 6.5, back up to 7.5. And finally, the last game of the night, Drake versus Washington State, which should be a fun game. I've got Drake in that one.
I had Drake in that one.
I think I've got Washington State, but I think it's going to be close.
The biggest upset of the day will be what?
Illinois.
Shut up. McNeese State over Gonzaga.
I will go with Illinois losing later on as well. We appreciate each and every one of you who came out and said hello today. If you guys have not done so yet, feel free to come by. We'll be here until about 3 o'clock between me and T-Bone. The Fast Lane will be broadcasting live until 5. We are out at Cyberg's in O'Fallon, Illinois. Tomorrow we'll be at Helen Fitzgerald's off of Manchester. So come on by, say hello. We'll be watching all the games out there tomorrow. For Alex and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley.
I don't think it's off of Manchester. It's the one in South County, off of Watson.
Close enough.
Well, that's my neck of the woods. You need to keep it down over there.
Appreciate Bradford Bruns doing a fantastic job for us
Unbelievable.
back in the studio. Doty keeping us on the air, which is a challenge at times
Very
when we're
much
on
so.
remote, so we appreciate him doing that. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on 101 ESPN.